Welcome to the Chattanooga Beer and Record Board meeting. All meeting attendees, please sign in at the designated sign-in sheet at this podium if you have not already. All electronic devices must be turned off or muted so as to not disrupt the meeting. Any individual wishing to address the board must do so from this podium. Please adjust the microphone and state your name before making comments. We'd also like to point out anyone who is getting a new or a temporary beer permit today to please talk to Ms. Calandra Smith over here in the second row with the Hamilton County Coalition. And then lastly, these meetings are now live streamed, so enjoy. We will move for a motion to approve the minutes for August 3rd.
So moved.
We have a motion from Dan Mayfield. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ron Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So approved. Well, next with the swearing in of witnesses.
Anyone that's going to be coming to the podium to speak today needs to stand at this point at this time, please.
Mr. Rudolph, stand up, please.
Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're giving today will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will next go to the temporary beer permit applications.
Representing Rabbit Valley Farmers Market, Inc. This is Coolidge Park Kickoff.
Oh.
Samantha Kearns Leslie is making application for a temporary beer permit for 150 River Street, Coolidge Park. The organization has not had a beer permit for such an event.
The event is scheduled for October 1st, 2023, from 10 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. with a rain date of October 8th. The location is owned by the City of Chattanooga and is on RPK.
And they have met all requirements from us.
Good morning. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your event.
I'm Samantha Kern Leslie, and I'm the Executive Director of the Rabbit Valley Farmers Market, and we'll be doing an event in conjunction with Shop the Market at on October 1st. Market events, so to speak, with vendors and live music and alcohol.
Market is the folks who do it in Collegedale, correct?
Yes, this is a representative
okay,
for that,
I
yes.
recognize you. Okay, perfect. Questions from the board?
Tell us a little bit about how you're going to ID people for beer and how you're going to control underage drinking.
We will card everybody who tries to buy alcohol every time they try to come up.
Okay.
To be on the safe side, we card everybody, and we all have our ABC licensing.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Smith?
I assume there's a lot of little booths in this circle on the diagram here of a different type of, explain that to us.
Explain that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, repeat your question?
Well, I assume there's going to be a lot of little booths inside this.
You're talking about the vendors?
Yes, sir.
That's correct. Everything will,
What is your name?
Robert Davis.
Robert Davis.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm the organizer of Shop the Market at, we're working in conjunction. Yeah, there'll be multiple vendors. We're looking anywhere from about 75 to about 108. Most of those are be craft and art vendors with a few food trucks parked out on the side street. The alcohol tent will be contained on top of there being IDs, so everything will be roped off.
And one more, who's going to be serving your beer?
I will be serving it along with a colleague with the Rabbit Valley Farmers Market who's a licensed bartender. We're both licensed bartenders.
Do you have a certification license or anything?
Yeah, we have the ABC certification.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir. Yes, we both do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Lori, did you see that Mr. Cole joined?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry?
I apologize.
It's okay. All right. Any other questions from the board?
Make a motion, we approve the application.
We have a motion from Dan Mayfield. Is there a second? Second from Ron Smith. Ms. Morris? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, so approved. Congratulations. Thank you for doing business in Chattanooga and have a great event.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next applicant, representing Agave Azul Mexican Bar and Grill, Inc. Ruben Anaya and Lourdes Anaya are making application to engage in the sale of consumer beer at 4604 Skyview Drive. The two have not had a beer permit at this location in the past. The pending application reflects a change of name and ownership. The business was formerly Las Margaritas, Inc., doing business as Las Margaritas II, operated by Abdon Vasquez and Leonor Banderas. The location is owned by Las Margaritas, Inc., and is zoned C2.
So the only hold that I saw on this morning was legal?
Was legal?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I did. It was passed from the last hearing for a reason.
It was, I thought it was
There was something with building, if I remember
building, it was
correctly.
with building,
Right,
correct?
and has that been resolved?
Yes, I didn't see anything else on there that was holding it up on that end, at least for zoning or anything.
Okay.
That's what you wanted,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. I've approved it.
And they're
So
good to
legal
go.
just approved it? All right, good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back.
Thank you, thank you.
If you could just introduce yourself and remind the board what you're doing? You want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
Excuse me, sorry, before I continue, I would like to mention that I'm translating for my father, so I can swear in.
All right, what was your name?
Kevin Anaya.
Okay. And you're going to be translating English to Spanish and Spanish to English, is that correct? Okay, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will translate from English to Spanish and Spanish to English to the best of your ability?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Smith?
Last time I think we did talk about the old permit, but, did you bring, well, if you get your license today, are you ready to, can you submit that back to Ms. Lawrence?
Yes, sir, if we get approved today, we are ready.
Okay, when you submit that back, you need to write surrender on it and date it and sign it and get it then to Ms. Lawrence.
All right, yes, sir.
Thank you.
No problem.
Did you have another question?
Yes, I was just wondering if we could get the contact information from Ms. Lawrence.
Yes, we'll give that to you before you leave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board or motions?
Motion, we approve the application.
We have a motion from Dan Mayfield. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, I see your question.
Yes, Madam Chair, I want to make sure that his team is going to go through the training that they need to go through.
Do you have your TABC permit? For-
The liquor license?
His question is it the liquor license? one?
Yes, the liquor permit from the state.
Yes, ma'am, we do.
You do have that. We also want to introduce you to Ms. Calandra Smith over here in the audience. She's with the Hamilton County Coalition, and she can go over any beer permit and beer code with you as well as a secondary coverage. Anything
you.
else, Mr. Cole?
No, thank you.
No problem. All right, so we had a motion to approve by Dan Mayfield. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Tiffany Bell. Ms. Morris? Approve. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Thank you for doing business in Chattanooga. Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next applicant representing Acapulco Bar, Inc., doing business as Escape Nightclub. Maria Thomas and Teresa Thomas are making an application to engage in the sale of consumer beer at 6295 Shallowfoot Road, Unit 110. The two have not had a beer permit for this location in the past. The location is owned by Neom Lata of Minnesota and is zoned C2.
So I looked at this morning, and it appears as though zoning rejected it. I think it was within the buffer of a church. So zoning has not approved it yet, so I can't say it's been approved on our end. Daycare.
And what is their zoning?
Let me pull it up real quick.
Say on the agenda. Did you? C2. But it's too close to a church.
And I think it's within 500 feet of a daycare center. One that's prohibited.
What, Mr. Woods? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I did, yes, ma'am. So it looks like Mr. Wiley from zoning said this is within the 500-foot buffer prohibition of Over the Rainbow Daycare Center, currently operating at 2315 Center Street, 2 parcels down. Due to this fact, the zoning approval has been rejected.
Okay. Do they understand? I mean, Ms. Thomas, do you understand what Ms. Sergeant Woods is saying about your zoning?
Yes, yes,
What is your first name, ma'am?
Maria,
Maria?
Maria.
So with that, if it's within that and you don't have the proper zoning, we can't move forward with a permit. Is that, Sergeant Woods, are you confirming that?
I'm sorry?
Are you confirming that they're within the perimeter of the 500 buffer
According to
zone?
zoning, that's correct.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I would like to know what is the exact distance from the space I rent from the daycare? Because I did on maps, on Google Maps, and it shows it's 600 feet away from each other. So I would like to know what is the, like the distance.
Right.
So, like,
I believe, I'm not in zoning, but that would be a conversation to have with Mr. Wiley in zoning, but I believe it's from egress to egress that they measure, depending on where those sites are. But I would suggest that you have a conversation with Mr. Wiley, because he would need to pass this before we can proceed.
yes, because it took me like 10 months to get here. I submitted my application on October the 8th, so I had to follow every step. So as today, I have everything approved, like fire marshal approved, building approved, health inspection approved, and I have a special permit approved that it was granted to me on December the 6th, 2022, and from District 6, that it was part of the zoning. For my establishment. So I have everything ready, I have my license, I have already the sales and use tax certificate, everything. It's ready, I already put my tables. Every requirement I asked, or the people asked me, I did it as far as today, and I'm ready to work.
Right, I
Yes.
understand that, and I believe that you have, but at this point, like, we don't have control over the zoning, and it can't go past to us without that. So I would just encourage you to please talk to the zoning department to see if there's anything that you can do to amend this for you to open, because I would like you to be open.
If I may add something, it was brought to my attention that Bar Watson actually shares that same address, I think maybe just in a different unit. So I don't know if there's something.
There could be a multitude of reasons for that. They could have been there before the daycare was there. They could be further down and they actually meet that requirement. So I don't know what the reason for that would be. We would have to look into that.
We're gonna have to get you to talk.
So we need to make a motion to pass it.
Yeah.
And I'll work with you to see if we can help you out, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. So is there a motion to pass to the next beer board, go ahead. Oh, Mr. Wiley. Your timing is perfect. Exactly, your timing is perfect. Thank you for being here. We have questions.
It's atrocious, I apologize.
It is atrocious this morning. Good morning.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley.
Is this 6925?
62.
6295?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
it is 6925. Okay, so the issue here is this, there's a daycare within the buffer. For beer, it's door to door. Believe for liquor, it's gonna be property line to property line. So there's a daycare, I wanna say 2 parcels down, yeah, I'll put the map into there. So there's a daycare at 2315 Center Street. So I've got all the information here. They are an active daycare. They have been in existence since they first got power in their name in April of 2021. They began taking children in January of 2022. They're open now. I spoke with them when I actually went out there and drove by just to make sure they hadn't temporarily closed or relocated or anything like that. They do have a valid license and have had multiple inspections from DHS at this facility, at this location.
Is it 6295? Is that the proper address? 6295.
So the proper address is 6925.
692, so it's incorrect on the
Okay, sorry,
agenda.
I'm looking at the wrong map.
No, that's what he has also.
Okay, Mr. Cole, was that your question?
That was my
That was your statement? Okay.
6925.
Correct.
Is the correct address, okay.
And you said it was door to door, right? With-
So regularly used door for ingress and egress by the public to regularly used door, ingress and egress by the public is what the city code says. So if you look at the map at 6925, they are literally two parcels down. 2315 Center Street is two parcels down, but they are well within the 500-foot buffer door to door for beer, and they will be within property line distance for liquor as well. There was some question about back and forth in the portal, and I'm assuming one of you is Maria? Okay. Stating that they thought the zoning was okayed back in 2022 because there was a special permit. So city code requires any late night establishment to apply for a special permit under certain zones. So that is the okay per se that they got when they received a special permit to operate that type of business within that zone at that location, separate from their beer permit or their liquor license that they're asking for concurrently. So in doing the zoning review, looking at the distance prohibition for the beer, they do fall within that prohibited range of 500 feet for on-premise.
Can you explain more about that permit, the special permit that they got that gave them permission to be a late night establishment?
I can. So city code, and I'll pull it up for you.
I'm just curious how they would get that, how that would come before, because a late night establishment's gonna serve beer, how that would come before.
So basically, in certain zones within the city, to operate a specific type of business, a liquor store or a late night establishment like that, I believe, I'm not stating 100%, but I believe all zones that want to operate those types of establishments have to go before city council and receive a special permit
Okay.
to operate that type of business. If they don't receive that permit, there's no point in going forward with any other license or
Right,
permit.
right.
So they have to start there.
Right,
I don't believe there's a cost for that,
okay.
but I'm not sure if there's a cost for that special
Well,
permit.
their time is valuable, so, I
Right.
mean, I want to consider that, you know.
So, but at this point in time, the review is done when it's sent to us for the beer board, for the permit, and they do fall within that prohibited distance.
Mr. Mayfield?
Yeah, so I'm looking at that map, so I see so is this building that sits back from the street, the daycare center?
That's correct.
Okay,
Are you done? I'm gonna go to the next
yeah,
one.
I'm done.
Mr. Smith?
What is the actual distance? Do you have that offhand, Council Wiley?
I do not. What I can do is try to get it for you real quick.
And how many units are located at 6295 Shaliford Road?
So to be clear, it's 6925. And I'm not sure how many units are actually there. I believe this specific space was 4 units converted down into 1 unit.
Okay.
But they are I believe a 2-level building, and they have upstairs and downstairs units that are across the front, and then some are on the back
Do you
side.
know are there other units on that property, or is it just the one business?
And other units,
Are there other businesses, I'm sorry, maybe Are there other businesses at that address?
Absolutely. I mean, this is where the Mexi Wing restaurant is. This is also where on the corner, there's a late night establishment there as well.
Do they have permits?
They do. They do have permits. Now, both of those establishments, and that was brought up to me and back and forth. And my answer to that is, both of those establishments had their permits before the daycare moved to that location, previous to the moving. So it was
Gotcha.
2021. The difference in this case is, it's an after the fact.
Any additional questions from the board?
I'd still like to know what the distance is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm just trying to see if it's something that's remedial or if it's just.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'm going to try to get you this distance, at least approximated. So just to be clear, the suite that you guys are going to lease is right in here? Is that correct?
Yes, here.
Right in here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's portal to portal, isn't it? Right. Door to door.
Yeah, door to door for beer.
It's a crow flies.
I'm sorry.
Intersection, right? That's right.
I love doing this on an iPad. Just so you see what I'm going to testify to. So, just a rough approximate measurement in the Chattanooga's GIS system. It's 391.5 feet from where their suite would be, which is, if you're looking at the map, it's kind of a L-shaped building a little bit like this, and it's just down a little bit from the center there, from the crux, and then to the door of the daycare, which is to the, if you're looking at the daycare's building, they have two doors, but I measured it to the right door, which is the main door that they use. And it's showing 391.55 feet.
So I just want to be clear. So it doesn't sound like they'll be able to remediate that or fix that by putting the door someplace else in their building.
No, the door is not in front of each other. The door is like behind all the way, like the other side. Because it's like an L and it's closed. We don't see each other. It's different.
I understand. So I don't believe it can be remediated unless the daycare chooses a different location in the future. But as right now, specifically for beer, they're within door to door, and they'd definitely be within property line for liquor moving forward.
Any other questions from the board? Or
So I think what her possible options would be is to defer this a little while to see if there's a change in the ordinance that comes up, or to possibly seek rezoning of this. So if the application is denied, she can't apply for another 12 months.
Right.
So it might be better for her to either voluntarily withdraw and reapply when, things come together, or just defer this indefinitely until the zoning is changed or there's a change in the ordinance or the daycare requirement.
Okay. Ms. Thomas, what do you want to withdraw your application? And to revisit the zoning?
I will say that we are working on the beer code and some things are
I know.
going to change. So,
What did you,
Or table it?
we defer it.
That's what I was saying.
That's what we're saying, we defer it. Is there a motion? Mr. Smith?
I'll make a motion, you want to use defer or table? I don't.
Defer.
Defer? I don't know that, okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion, we defer this till the beer codes are,
The zoning is resolved?
zoning is looked at again.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Ron Smith to defer this application until the zoning is reviewed and beer code is reviewed. We have a second from J.W. Cole. Ms. Morris? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, so deferred. Good luck, Ms. Thomas.
Ms. Thomas, what I would suggest that you do is keep in touch with Ms. Bertha.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Is your mic on?
Is it on?
It should be.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, so what I suggest that you do is keep in touch with Ms. Bertha periodically to see if there's any changes in the ordinance. You could also start the process to seek the rezoning of your establishment. So,
And Madam Chair, zoning said he will get with them as well to make sure they really understand what's taking place.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Wiley.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Good luck.
Yes, Basil.
Wow.
All right.
Next applicant representing Shonik LLC, doing business as Spice Trail. Sayunta Singh. Anyone here representing Spice Trail?
She was here, Sujata.
How you pronounce her name?
Sujata,
Okay. Maybe she went to put some money in the meter.
maybe. We'll go in just a few
Want
minutes.
to pass it?
Application
Yeah.
before.
It is. Is there a motion to pass until after violations?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we move it to the end of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to move Spice Trail's application to the end of the agenda from Dan Mayfield and a second from Tiffany Bell. All in favor? Any opposed? So approved, so moved. All right, record violations, we have none. Record applications, we have none. And now we are at beer violations.
Representing Westbound Honky Tonk LLC, doing business as Westbound Honky Tonk, Michael R. Harding, Suzanne Marie Harding, and Juan Esteban Cuba, located at 24 Station Street, Unit 106, Consumer Carryout, District 8. Reference violation of Section 550B, sales to incapacitated or incompetent persons prohibited. No permittee under this article shall make or allow any sale to any intoxicated person or to any feeble-minded, insane, or otherwise incapacitated person, nor allow any such person to loiter on or about the premises. And Section 582A1, grounds for revocation or suspension. The beer board shall have the power to revoke or suspend and shall be charged with the duty of revoking or suspending any permits issued by it under this division upon notice to the permittee and a hearing thereon for any violation or any provision of federal or state law regulating the sale, storage, and transportation of alcoholic beverages, or for any violation of any provision of this code or any other ordinance of the city, or when the permittee operates a disorderly place. And the beer board may also, in its discretion, suspend, revoke, or impose a civil penalty for due cause not specified herein. The allowed provisions herein stated were violated on 7/21/2023 per CPD number 23079299 and CPD number 23079308.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Wood. Will you make sure your mic's up?
I'm sorry?
Okay, yeah, just
Okay,
so
all
we
right,
can
good
hear
deal.
you.
I'll speak a little bit louder.
Thank you.
Before you begin, Sergeant Wood, the gentleman in the middle, did you sign in, sir?
I did.
Did you get sworn in? I think you came a little bit.
It might have been a little bit late, yes, sir.
So,
Let's make
just
sure,
to make
Lori.
sure.
Yeah.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I did.
What is your name?
Juan Cuba, Juan Juan, Cuba, another country, Cuba.
Thank you.
All right, Sergeant Wood, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and present.
Absolutely.
Questions probably afterwards.
So I'll begin with this first violation, the sales of the incapacitated or incompetent persons. Police were dispatched to this location on an unconscious party. While on the scene, 2 parties were observed to be highly intoxicated.
Can you look up? We can't hear you.
Yep, sorry about that. I'll try it again. Police were dispatched to this location.
The mic doesn't move, I don't think.
On an unconscious party. While on the scene, 2 parties were observed to be highly intoxicated.
What location are we talking about?
The westbound on Station Street.
Was the unconscious party inside?
So, yes, there was an unconscious party inside.
Okay.
And Sergeant Buckner will be able to testify a little bit more to this. Come to find out, the party was assaulted inside the bar.
Okay.
And police responded to this location on a possible unconscious party. And while they were there, they observed the unconscious party, and I believe it was his wife that appeared to be pretty intoxicated.
And when did this happen?
July 27th.
July the 23rd.
Yep, July 23rd.
And you issued a citation on what day?
The 27th.
And you were not present, you're just looking at the report, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know if the police talked to any of the owners or anything like that at the time?
I believe that there was some interaction with either Mr. Cuba or Mr. Harden here. I'm not 100% sure, but my understanding was that there was some communication with them.
All right. I believe the board has a receipt that indicates $192.82 worth of alcohol that was purchased. Is that related to this case?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Could you describe what this document shows?
So, looking at the receipt, if you'll notice, there was a time at 1:34 a.m. is when the receipt was printed. I spoke with Mr. Harden, and approximate arrival time for these patrons were around 12:30.
So just an hour before this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how many patrons were there that this ticket represents? You know?
I believe 2, just the gentleman and his wife that was there together. I also want to note that Mr. Harden advised that they were cut off at 1:38. But looking at the document, you can see that there was a total of 13 different drinks that were served in that time. 7 single Crown Royals, 2 double Crown Royals, 2 double Tito's, which I was told those were dropped on the floor, and 2 single Jack Daniels.
How much, I'm fairly ignorant about this, maybe somebody can help me out. What's the difference between a single and a double in terms of amount?
As far as ounces, I have no idea. I would have to ask a bartender or somebody that knows.
Well, it depends on the establishments. They're pour. What is your average pour in a drink?
1.25.
Okay. So it's, yeah.
2.5?
Yeah,
It's a double?
yeah, 2.5 is double.
Sergeant Woods. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, can I keep looking at them?
Yeah, if you'll go for it.
Are we saying, I know we're looking at this receipt, that the individuals, or were they buying rounds for people, sharing it? I mean, or is this an assumption, or?
So here's another concern. I was told that the gentleman bought the DJ some beverages.
So it could be in this receipt?
Correct.
What was the condition of the wife who was unconscious?
Well, it was the husband that was unconscious.
Oh, okay.
My understanding, the wife was very belligerent, at some point attacked police and was arrested due to that. The husband also came to fighting police, there at the establishment. And I believe even at Erlanger, while he was getting treated, he was also pretty combative.
So, what time did the police get called? I'm trying to think. 3? No. 1:44?
Go ahead.
1:44 in the morning.
The police were there immediately because we
Right.
pay for a police officer on the street.
I'm asking what time this happened though. I'm sorry that they appeared to
It
help.
happened at 12:42.
Okay.
I mean, 1:42.
1:42? Okay,
So they were there inside within a minute.
okay. Thank you.
And when you say this happened, you're talking about the unconscious individual or the call to the police regarding the unconscious individual?
So, at 12:42, there was a fight between two individuals. It was, well, yeah, one guy punched a guy and then he fell. Immediately, we notified our police officers because on Station Street, we're forced to pay for 5 police officers. Immediately notified that we had an unconscious person inside. CPD came inside, was taking care of the victim. And that's when the wife noticed that her husband was laying on the ground. And she came over there and was hysterical, trying to get to her husband that was bleeding. And she started fighting the cops. She didn't stop, so she got arrested. And when the guy came to, he was still like in his sense fight or flight. So that's when he assaulted Officer Buckner and started fighting police officers.
All right, so it sounds like, are there 5 to 6 different individuals involved in this? Or is it one person who was unconscious and then was fighting and?
Yeah, so there was 3 total individuals. One person hit the guy that was unconscious and he just ran.
Okay.
The victim was laying on the floor. We called police in immediately. The police was taking care of that individual. When his wife saw that he was on the ground, she came over and started fighting to get to her husband, so she was fighting the cops and wouldn't stop. So that's when she got arrested. And then the guy came conscious and he started fighting the police.
Okay. Do you have video of this?
Yes, I have video. It was on a flash drive. I don't know if
Mr. Cole has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Now, here you referenced the officers on the outside. Do you have any security on the inside?
Yes, we have global protection.
And where were they when all this going on?
Well, as soon as it happened, the bartender was the first one to see it, and she flashlighted the area, and everybody was there. But we also were notified at the front, like within a minute, the police were inside.
So I'm hearing the officers on the outside taking action. What was the action of the security guards on the inside?
Basically trying to push like the other customers so that they could.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I'll say as far as the drinks, the people went to 3 different bartenders. So we're like a fast-paced environment. I know that's no excuse, but they went to 3 different bartenders, and the wife only went up once, and then the husband went up for the rest of the times. And they were only served as 2 drinks per time, as the bartenders are trained.
So you have a 2-drink limit?
Yeah.
Is what you're saying? And then, but also there's still, I mean, even if they went up, it's still the same tab. And each
Yeah,
bartender can see
yes,
that tab
ma'am,
when
I
they pull it
understand
up. So there still should be concern there. Mr. Washington?
What was the capacity at the time of this here?
I think it's, yeah.
We had about 165 people inside the bar.
So you had 4 security guards in there at that time?
So we have multiple staff members inside the business, right? We have them in specific spots taking care. They're all pretty good at like spotting stuff. If something's happening or something's about to happen, they try to stop it. Hey man, come outside, whatever. If they cannot handle it, they come outside and get me. Right? I'm an ex-police officer. I've dealt with people for the past 5 years of my life, so I know how to de-escalate a lot of situations. Many times to the point where people just shake my hands, they leave. Right? Our incidents have dropped down since we took over because I've trained and I talked to all my staff members and all my security guys not to go hands-on, but if they need to, come get me and we'll handle it.
So the blue law that just got implemented here wasn't affected with any of this, right? As far as you say, you're supposed to have a certain amount of security guards inside as well as.
Outside, yes. So we have security both inside, right? Our staff members are inside, and then we have police that are patrolling the outside on the street, right? Since a staff member came out and told me, hey, there's somebody unconscious near the bathrooms, so I immediately, talking to one of the officers, I said, hey, man, we have somebody unconscious, call for EMS, and that's what I knew at that moment. When we walked back there, right, the victim was laying on the ground, bleeding from the nose. So at that point, I was like, okay, he didn't just slip and fall. Somebody assaulted him. So while the police, were trying to figure out what was going on, I started telling my staff members to push everybody away from, where the police were trying to figure out what was going on. And the wife was, on the ground with her husband. Hysterical wife. I don't know if you ever dealt with somebody who's hysterical, especially a woman that's loyal to her husband. All she sees is her husband bleeding on the ground. Right? And then cops are trying to pull her away so they can work on the husband, and she doesn't want to leave his side. So at that point, they have to pull her even harder, and then she starts fighting because she wants to get back to his side. So that's when she gets arrested. Right? I mean, it could be alcohol. For me, it's a woman concerned about her husband's well-being because, as far as she knows, she doesn't know if he's even breathing or not breathing, or he's dead or not dead. All she sees is her husband on the ground bleeding.
I'm sorry you said this, but what was the capacity again?
So the capacity we have is 220. We have 165.
And
Around
how many
165.
global security did you have?
We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 staff members inside, and then we have 2 in the outside. When watching people coming in and out. And
5 global or 5 staff members?
So we have 1 global,
Okay.
5 staff members.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, that's what I was asking. Mr. Smith,
That was my question.
that was your question? Okay, Mr. Cole.
I think mine is where you were going.
Okay, go ahead.
You're referencing staff members as security as well. I'm just trying to figure out, is this a security team that you're bringing in, or you have trained your staff to be security, even yourself as owner, you're saying you're security as well? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, so I'm talking about staff members just as staff members, not security aspect, right? We've been able to handle every situation inside a business with only 1 armed security guard, right, which is Thomas. But inside the bar, my staff members are pretty good at being able to spot whenever something's about to happen. They go talk to the people and say, hey man, let's, separate you from you. They walk them out. They learn how to de-escalate.
So is it safe to say no security but 1 guy named Thomas on the inside? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Him and me, yes. So we're both the main.
That's what I
But do you have your certification as a security guard?
Not at the moment, not yet.
Okay, so you're not security,
not
you're
security,
management,
no, yeah.
right? So Global
That's what-
Protection Services had 1 person, and then you had the CPD who's out on the street that's hired as a part of the Station Street security, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Mr.
How many did you
Smith?
say on the outside?
2. 5 that are on
outside.
Station Street, CPD.
But they're for Station Street.
They're Station Street, correct.
They're-
Mr. Schmidt?
And also, if we're done with these witnesses, I have Sergeant Butner, who I'd like to testify as well. He was the officer who was, so just.
Yeah.
Mr. Cole?
Just for clarity, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, go for it.
165 people on the inside,
That's correct.
1 security guard.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, any other questions from the board for these witnesses? All right, Mr. Buckner, will you please come up and introduce yourself?
Sergeant Buckner, please state your name for the record.
I'm Sergeant Jeffrey Buckner.
And can you describe who you work for and what you were doing at Westbound on this evening?
I work for Chattanooga Police Department. I've been a part of the police department for 10 years. I am assigned midnight shift supervisor of the downtown area, which includes Station Street. This particular week we're talking about, though, I was part of the extra job detail, the 5 officers and supervising them for Station Street, particularly just them.
Okay. So, how did you hear about this unconscious person in Westbound?
Officer Billingsley was one of the officers there with me. He was notified by, I believe, Mr. Cuba that they had an unconscious party in there. He immediately did radio for an ambulance to respond. Due to the Station Street being active still of a crowd, We informed EMS to come to the back because we were informed it was near the back of the establishment and it would be easier to have access for both EMS and then later we requested fire department. The 5 officers of us both entered the building to assess the situation, being the club was very crowded. I do not believe they were at max capacity. I believe when he says 165, that was their count. But all 5 of us were needed for safety reasons. When we got there, I noticed there was a male on the ground unconscious with a female slinging him around, which I later found out to be his wife. This is
How did you describe that?
slinging him around.
Can you describe that in detail? What, I mean.
Slinging?
My first initial seeing was him sitting down with his back to the wall and her bear hugging him and pulling him back and forth.
Trying to wake him up or you know?
That would be speculation at this point.
Sure.
I believe she was in a frantic mode to where the officers I was supervising began to try to assess to see what condition he was, if he was breathing, if he had an airway, and what immediate medical need he needed. To do that, they need to separate this is Mr. Lyles and Miss Lyles, so we have easier following. Separate Miss Lyles from Mr. Lyles. Upon trying to do that, Miss Lyles attacked Officer Baldwin and caused minor injuries to her, to where she actually has to be tested now for blood exposure due to Mr. Lyles bleeding. Due to her fighting officers, the 5 officers, 3 of them had to break away to detain her. Due to the club still being crowded and active, I instructed the officers to remove her from the dance area so as no patron would accidentally step on her or cause any damage or injury to her. One of the other officers also went out back to help navigate EMS in. During that time, it was me and Officer Baldwin were remaining officers. I had also requested for additional officers to respond due to still having Station Street and all bars open and having a large crowd, just for safety reasons for no other. As other officers did respond, Mr. Lyles became conscious and was still, as they believe, in a fight or flight mode and began to fight.
And who was he fighting?
Unfortunately, I was the closest one and he began fighting me. Forgive me for the details, but he immediately grabbed my genitalia and pulled me to the ground. I could not talk, so I had to do an emergency radio alert. We have emergency buttons, so I activated that to request additional officers that I'm now in a serious fight, that I am in a lot of trouble. Officers responded in quickly, and once I was able to be separated, but during that, he put his mouth on my arm as well. Once he relinquished his grip and let go of my arm with his mouth, I was able to be freed. I separated myself from the situation, but I then requested, though, because of how the scene had become chaotic, for Westbound to be shut down for everyone's safety, including the patrons who were still in the club, who most actually did not know this was occurring because we were in the back area near the bar to the walkway of the bathroom. So there were people in the front that had no idea this was occurring. As officers arrived, they had the bar shut down with assistance of staff. It was then concluded with EMS and fire could safely come in, assess both myself, Mr. Lyles, Officer Baldwin, and Miss Lyles.
Any determination as to how intoxicated either of those parties were?
Unfortunately, I cannot recall very well. I know I could smell the odor of intoxicant because we were so face to face and his mouth being on my arm. But my interaction was very limited in the sense of I was in a fight or flight mode myself of trying to make sure of no further injury.
Post-incident, during any report, have you been able to review any reports or anything like that from other officers involving this? That might indicate their level of intoxication. If not, that's fine.
From learning later, I did learn about the initial assault of why we got called in there because we were also in a way clueless of how he was injured or unconscious. So I learned about an assault occurring prior. I also learned from Investigator Lynn, and I believe that's who helped with Sergeant Wood about the receipt of alcohol that was purchased. I have no knowledge of how much he did consume or view how much he consumed.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board for Mr. Buckner?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Phil Spitali, that's S-P-I-T-A-L-N-Y. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Harding and Whitcomb. I had a few questions for Sergeant Buckner, if that was okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Sergeant Buckner.
You can step up to the mic.
Yes, ma'am. I'll share.
can I ask you state who you're with now, what firm you're with?
Yes, sir. I work with Best and Brock Law Firm.
Aston Brock.
Best and Brock Law Firm. My name's Phil Spitalny. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Harden and Westbound. It's Westbound Honky Tonk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant Buckner, where was Mr. Harden where was Mr. Lyles positioned when you entered Westbound?
Are you referring to where he was in the club?
Yeah, and how was his body positioned?
As I remember, so if you walk in, it's basically a square building. You walk towards the back, it is a alleyway to the bathrooms. The bar is to your right. The bar is to my right, and we're in that beginning of that alleyway. As I remember, he is in a sitting position with his wife clinging to him.
Okay. And you described, as you arrived on the scene, you saw his wife slinging him around. Is that correct?
That I remember, yes.
Okay. That's not described anywhere in any of the reports from you or your colleagues, is it?
Not that I know.
Okay. And have you reviewed video footage of this incident?
A good amount that I can.
Okay. And that's not seen anywhere on the video footage, is it?
I believe it might be captured on mine or Officer Baldwin's video.
Okay. But again, that's not mentioned in any report.
Not that I know of.
Okay. And Sergeant Buckner, is it fair to say that Mr. Lyles was unconscious when you arrived?
Yes.
Okay. And did he appear to have some kind of head injury?
Yes, there was blood on the floor as well as from his person.
Okay. Can you describe how you were positioned in comparison to Mr. Lyles when he regained consciousness?
So once Ms. Lyles was separated, I have EMS training. I am still a state certified paramedic. I put Mr. Lyles in a recovery position on his left side because I noticed he did have a good pulse. He was breathing. He was spitting up blood, so he's clearing his own airway, as well as he started moving at extremities. So keeping him in that recovery position, I positioned myself near his knees, between his hips and his knees, to keep him balanced on that spot in a safe position, that way in case he also gets sick, he will not aspirate.
When he became conscious, is it fair to say that he immediately attacked you?
There was another bystander who wanted to try to help. He was claiming to be a gynecologist, and unfortunately in this situation was not able to assist in the needs that was needed. He wanted to reach in, but due to not having enough manpower, I didn't want to fight him as well, with my main focus on the unconscious party. As Mr. Lyles was regaining consciousness, he did try to swipe at him, which I informed him to get back, so that way he's not encouraged. Then slowly after, the attack on me happened.
Okay. Was there any communication between you and Mr. Lyles prior to this attack?
Prior, no.
Okay, so you weren't able to explain to him who you were, what had just happened. In your experience and your memory of the situation, Mr. Lyles was confused. Is that fair?
No, because I'm in the same uniform that I am in right now. That obviously does say police. It is labeled with a badge. I have a full uniform that is actually, most of it is actually the same gear I was wearing that night after being cleaned off with the blood. At some point during that, I know we made very good eye-to-eye contact before he tried to bite my arm.
My question was, is it fair to say that Mr. Lyles was confused? Are you saying that a man who's been attacked violently, who's unconscious, who's just come to on the ground with yourself and others around, knew exactly what was going on?
Well, speculating, seeing a uniformed officer that I had unobstructed view to see, I would imagine then the attack would stop instead of continuing further.
Okay. And you were able to, in your report, it's listed that to try to break away from Mr. Lyles, you struck him, correct?
Yes, I did.
Where did you strike him?
I struck him in the head.
Okay, so another head injury.
That would be speculation if I caused injury to him.
Okay. But in your attempt to break away from him, you struck him in the head?
I did.
Okay. And he had already been hit in the head, correct?
To my knowledge, I found out later, yes, from the previous assault.
But there was visible bleeding from his head when you saw him initially?
Yes, I did not know assault had occurred until later.
Okay. That's all I have for Sergeant Booker. Thank you.
I don't have any other additional questions. I don't know if the board may have some
Board,
questions.
do you have any? Oh, sorry. Mr. Mayfield?
Yes, this question for the business owners. What time, I'm looking at the reprint of the receipt, what time did they open the check? What time did they start?
It was around 12:40.
Around 12:40.
Or 12:43.
Yeah, 12:43, thank you. And do y'all make it a policy to observe if people are intoxicated before they even come in your establishment?
Yes, at the front, yes. That's our global security checks our IDs at the front.
All right, thank you.
And like I said, at 1:38, the person was given water and told they couldn't order any more drinks. And my bartenders have been retrained. After somebody's cut off, they need to be escorted to the front and offered an Uber or a ride or something like that. That's where we failed on that part, as when the person was cut off, they should have been taken to the front.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Harden, does it cause any concern for you that the fact that they've been there an hour and there's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 drinks with 4 of them being double served in an hour to the same check?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I went back and watched all the camera footage every time they came up there. They went to 4 different bartenders. There's 165 people in there, so they're not, if they're going to each bartender every time they get a drink, they're not going to remember that one person out of 165 people.
I understand that.
But-
I worked in large volume as well, but I think that capacity, but I think also, again, that this tool of your tab is what helps your staff as well to watch that. So I would just reiterate that for your own safety and liabilities, really.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other Ms. Bell, you have a question?
I do, about your receipt, where it says 2 double, was dropped on the floor.
Yes.
So how do we know that?
I observed on camera footage, the guy, as soon as he walked away from the bar, somebody bumped into him, and he immediately dropped the drinks and turned around and went back and told the bartender that he dropped the drinks and got 2 more.
2 of the same?
No, he dropped I think it was the Tito's.
The notes say that 2 double Tito's, and the bar tab reiterates this, 2 double drinks were dropped. Those were vodka. 3 minutes later, rung into the system are 2 single whiskey drinks.
Yeah.
And then I have.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I have another question in regards to buying the DJ drinks so they
Yes.
can drink.
Well,
your staff members can drink.
Well, the DJ was a contractor. He's not an actual day-to-day employee.
He's not a W-2.
Yeah, he's
No.
1099.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Bell, are you finished?
Yes.
Before I move, okay. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I would just like to make that receipt part of the exhibit, part of the record. So I guess, Ms. Burke, could you hand that to the, just as, I guess, exhibit 1. You have a copy, well.
Okay. Is that all, Mr. Schmidt, before I go to the next person?
What's that?
Is that all you had
That's
before I go
all
to the
I
next person? Okay, Mr. Cole?
Yes, how many bartenders were working that night? I think you said it, I just want to make sure.
4.
So 4. And I'm understanding, I've never been in your establishment. How many sections do you have?
We have 3 different computers, so they're lined up
Okay.
throughout.
There's 1 large bar.
One large bar, 4 bartenders.
Yeah.
All right, 1 security.
1 armed security guard.
Yeah, yeah. And your bartenders have been trained, I heard you say.
Yes.
All right.
And anytime there's a situation inside the bar, they have a flashlight back there. So they flashlight anytime there's an incident that needs to be handled.
And that occurred immediately.
Are you done, Mr. Cole?
I am, thank you, Madam
No
Chair.
problem. Ms. Morris?
So you said that you have 1 security working, was 1 security working at night?
We have 1 armed security from Global.
So
The rest are just like staff members throughout the bar.
So who checks the IDs at the door?
The armed security person.
So while they were at the door, no one was monitoring the inside area?
Yes, we have 1, 2, 3, we have 5 staff members that are throughout the bar.
And they are trained for security? Are they licensed?
They're trained to, if any situation, to come get the security or the police officers that we pay for to handle any violent situation.
Are you done, Ms. Morris?
Yes.
All right.
Can
Yes, sir, go
I,
ahead.
real quick, sir. So at that point, what we mean with that, like, all staff members are trained not to go hands-on.
Yeah.
Right? There's no hands-on liability. If somebody refuses to leave, they come get me. 99% of the time, unable to defuse it, we bring them out. If I'm not able to even get them to come out, I go and get police or armed security guards. 99% of the time, it's police, because at that point, we take all liability from us. We have asked them to walk out. At the same time, the staff member that we have positioned in the back, it was a serious unfortunate event. He was, somebody came to got him saying, hey, there's people looking inside cars in the back parking lot. The moment he walked out to check on that, he was locked out of the business by one of random people that we had back there. And so that fight that happened at that moment, that happened maybe 2-3 minutes before the fight happened. So in the video, you can see a staff member trying to come back in, confused, like, why is this door locked? The staff member was, we suspended him for a couple of weeks because they know that if you want to go to the bathroom or get out, you have to come and get somebody else to cover your spot. Most of the time, that's me who's covering that spot. So, especially in the back, in the back by the bar, by the bathrooms and the bar, we know that's usually the spot where people try to go or something might happen. So, we always have that place very, look into. That's why we usually have 2 or 3 people around that same area by the bar to help affiliate all the stuff. So, I believe, if one of my staff members will have seen them arguing from the very beginning, he will have been able to go and separate them, the people, being able to escort them out or go get somebody before it escalated to a situation where it escalated into.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Next question goes to City Attorney.
Okay, I just need some clarification about this double TOs that was dropped on the floor. That was not replaced, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so then the next drink that they got were the 2 single Jack Daniels?
I thought it said Crown, but it was a whiskey drink, yes, ma'am.
It was a whiskey
I
drink.
think it's rung in 3 minutes later on the system.
Yeah, we don't have the timestamp for each
Okay.
ring in, but.
2 single Crown drinks, yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. So the
Okay.
Tito's, the double vodkas were not consumed.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that those drinks were not replaced.
That's correct.
Okay.
You're finished with your
I'm
question?
done.
All right, next is Mr. Cole.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, this is my last time.
You're fine, This is what we're doing, yeah.
So, the 5 staff members, their job is to observe, are they table hosts? I'm just understanding, what is their job? Is their job to play security, or what do they do when they show up to your establishment?
So their job is to be the eyes inside the business, right? Just like them being there, it's already kind of precautious because they're big dudes. People think that they're security or bouncers. They're not, but they just stand there making sure that people don't, the moment they see somebody arguing, they go and try to separate them from the very beginning. So they're the eyes inside the business, while I'm outside dealing with somebody else or while our security guards outside, So that's why they're pretty good at spotting. They've been working for the business before we even took over. So most of them have 2 or 3 years worth working in that environment with high level of people inside the business.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right, next is City Attorney, Mr. Schmidt.
Yep. So you have one security guard, Mr. Cuba, correct?
Yes.
You have one security guard who's actually trained in security.
We have one armed security guard, yes.
And he's trained to be a security guard.
That is correct.
How many, and then you have, I think you said 5 staff members who are your eyes and ears, as you say?
That night we did have 5, yes.
Okay.
We normally tend to have between 7. We like to have some roamings, like people just in case.
Are they members of your staff, or are they part of the security team?
They're members of the staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they have special training in terms of what are they observing, what are they supposed to do? Is there anything like that, or is that just something internal to your business?
So that's just something internal to our business. Some of them do, have gone through security, certification, stuff like that on their personal lives at some point or another. Most of them have worked for the business, again, for over 3 years. And besides that, I have myself, have talked to them multiple times on how to handle situations, like there's not being, before the business used to suffer, before we took over, of staff members trying to fight, customers. And since we took over and I talked to them, that's a big no. They know the moment they do something that they're not supposed to do, they're gonna get, suspended or moved out of the list for working there. So there's a lot of, coming to that. A lot of that is de-escalation. I talked to them a lot about how just talking to them, to the people who were trying to score them out,
So,
most of the times.
But so essentially, it's just your training of these 5 individuals?
At this moment, I've trained every single one of the staff members. I talked to every single one of the staff members, even the bartenders. They know when something's about to happen. They're trained and know when they see somebody's intoxicated or shows signs of intoxication, they cut them off. We give them a cup of water, and now, they're told to grab one of the staff members and tell them to escort them outside where we can help them find a ride home.
All right. Those 5 staff members are in addition to your bartenders, correct?
Just addition to, yes, you can say staff members.
So I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around this. So you have bartenders that stay behind the bar and just serve and do that sort of thing. And then you have these 5 people who are your quote-unquote eyes and ears as to what's going on. Do you have anybody waiting tables or anything like that?
The staff members do it themselves.
When you say staff members, are you talking about your eyes and ears, or are you talking about the bartenders?
No, the eyes and ears.
Okay.
The staff on the floor, right? As they make the little walks around the people, making sure everything's fine. They see bottles, they see cups, they see anything that, can be used for anything or any kind of trash to grab it, take it, and clean, the tables and stuff like that.
Do these 5 people also serve alcohol?
They do not, no.
Okay, so they just clean tables okay. Yeah. So when somebody wants alcohol, they have to go to the bar to get it?
That is correct.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate through this conversation, you're saying you have 1 global security, you have 5 staff members that are roaming, you have 4 behind the bar, and then you have yourself, right? For a cap of 200 plus?
That night, yes.
Okay.
We normally tend to have, again, between 7 to 8 staff members on the floor all the time.
In addition to the
bartenders. In addition to the bartenders.
Okay.
We've been coming out through a slow season. We haven't been seeing over 200 people inside the business, even over 150 at one time for a couple of months. So that's why we brought the staff members necessary inside the business.
Okay. Next, Mr. Mayfield.
Well, you answered my question on if the staff members have other duties, so that's done. Were both these people arrested for assault?
Yes, the very initial person that started this, there were warrants taken out of him. He fled the scene.
Okay.
And then the other, Mr. and Miss Lyles, were both arrested.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Lyles went to the hospital first.
Right.
And he was observed at the hospital. My understanding from the reports is that he was soon taken to the jail. So he wasn't held overnight or for a period of 12 hours or anything for observation. He was immediately taken to the jail after being checked out at the hospital.
Very good.
Yes, he did receive a CT scan. It was cleared by Erlanger Hospital, where he did also still fight an officer at the hospital there, but was cleared.
Okay.
He did fight an officer at the hospital while getting a CT scan.
I want to note the individual who initially injured Mr. Lyles, who subsequently attacked Sergeant Buckner, that individual has been banned from the establishment. He, like I said, fled the scene. Arrest warrants were taken out for him. It's my understanding. Mr. and Mrs. Lyles, they are Texas residents. They've also been banned, but we don't expect to ever see them at the westbound honky tonk again.
Okay, are you done, Mr. Mayfield?
Yes.
All right, next is Ms. Morris.
My question is is it Mr. Cuba?
Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about the training, or you talk to your 5 staffs that are the eyes and ears, is that specialized training, and does that training occur yearly or annually?
Most of the time we review it, every single time they come in, I tell them, hey, if something happens, come get me. Most of what we rely on is, come get me. I know some of my staff members might have some kind of, short fuse worth of temper, so that's why I try to get them away from people. If they're starting to get on your nerve, just you're dealing with drunk people, so come get me. I'm able to de-escalate most of those situations. So it's nothing specialized, nothing where I can go and give you certifications. It's just, me, as my experience, previous experiences that I've had, coming and telling you, hey, this is the way that we can do it from here on. Since it's my business, I'm trying to reteach my staff members. Now, we're still even looking right now into getting, a couple of these staff members, paying for their security certification, stuff like that, so they can also be certified, and be kind of working for the business, and have their own certifications as well. But we will not be hiring them as security guards.
So
either.
so there's no sit-down training from you?
Not from me personally, no. I mean, I sit down with them, I went over laws, tell them, hey, if you do hit somebody outside the property lines, that's assault. I'm not gonna go and try to get you out of jail. If you do this, I set up boundaries of what they can do and they cannot do. That's same thing with a lot of our customers. A lot of our regulars used to be the ones who used to fight. Actually, one of our regulars, the one who fought this, time. They know better. Most of the time I have one-on-one talk with them. They hold themselves back. They can't even get me saying, hey man, this guy's, starting to piss me off. So I go and I talk to them. I separate them, whatever it is I need to do. This is why, our for the amount of people that we see inside our business, we have very little actual physical altercations. Now you're still dealing with drunk people. You're still dealing with the nightlife. There's some things that you cannot handle, like our staff member getting locked outside, when he should be in his spot.
I have a question. Do you do bag checks and pat downs with your security when they enter?
We do. We have our security guard. He's the one who conducts the security entrance. We have no guns, no knives policy. We even take tasers off people, maces, all this stuff.
Okay, so my next question, and this might be for Sergeant Wood or Sergeant Buckner, is am I reading this correctly on this police report that someone had a weapon on them? Under simple assault, personal weapons? I don't know what that means, so that's what I'm asking.
Yes, personal weapon, it's usually like an impact, your hand or grab or strike.
Got it, okay, that's why I wanted to double check, thank you. All right, next question is Mr. Smith.
Tell me, how many days a week you're open and hours, please?
We're open 3 days a week, Thursday, 8 to midnight, Friday, 8 to like 2-ish, 2:30, Saturday, 7 to 2-ish, 2:30, it just depends whenever. And I will say this incident, it was like a one punch back and forth. There's nothing that any security guard could have done about it. So we did what we were supposed to. We got the police in there to handle the situation. I don't know what more we could have done for this. You're never gonna, as long as alcohol is being served in a bar, you're never gonna stop two individuals from fighting if they're gonna fight. But we do have a zero tolerance policy, like he was saying. Any individual that gets in a fight, we usually ask for their ID or what their name is from the police after they handle the situation, and they're banned from the bar.
Okay, next question is Mr. Cole.
Yes, ma'am. My question is, you're referencing, it's Mr. Cooper?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My question is, you keep referencing that the 5, if they see something, they come and get you. What happens when you're not there? Or are you always there?
90% of the time I'm there. If I'm not there, then they go and get, Mr. Thomas, who's our armed security guard. He goes and handles the situation. So at that point, when Mr. Thomas gets pulled off from, the front, then everybody entering the club is stopped at that moment. So he's able to come back out and, make sure that everybody coming into the club is, safe and doesn't have weapons and they're all 21 and up. And, everything returns back to normal business.
And I'm also there every single night.
Are they coming to get you? I know he never referenced you. I just want to make sure.
I'm also there every single night, and my background is I was an MP in the Army and a nuclear security officer, so I have training in how to handle situations.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next is the city attorney, Catherine.
Just a quick question again about your security. Are they certified in Dallas law? Are y'all compliant with that?
We're working on getting some of staff members certified through Dallas law. That's why they're called staff members and not security guards. Because if there were security guards, it would have to be Dallas law certified. Now, most of the staff members who have been there for a while and planning on staying there for a while, we're going to pay through their, Dallas Law certification. We have told them that if they do go get their certifications, we're gonna, up their pay, because at that point they'll be more valuable. Now, it's up to them to do that. I believe that our one security guard, he is, Dallas Law certified.
Okay, have you gotten his certification? Your one armed security guard? You have a copy of that?
On Global.
I don't have a copy, but he's a park ranger, so he's post-certified.
Okay.
But he should be certified through Global as well, so you should, he's through Global, so you should have that. So are you saying that you're getting them certified so that you can take on the liabilities and responsibilities of being your own security?
No,
what
we're
your
just getting
intention
them
is?
certified so they can be certified themselves. So, they're still gonna be considered staff members, because the moment we hire them as security, we have to pay for,
Right.
like if we're a security company. We're just getting them certified, so in case of something happening, they are certified. We're hiring certified personnel.
You're just
always
taking
wanna-
additional
yeah.
steps, is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Morris?
I have a question for Mr. Harden.
Yes.
What are your hours again?
On Thursday, we're 8 p.m. to midnight. Friday, 8 p.m. to like 2-ish, 2:30. It just depends when it dies out, when we turn the lights on. And Saturday, 7 p.m. to 2:30.
So do you have a cutoff time when you stop selling alcohol?
We do last call 15 minutes prior.
Okay. All right. Mr. Mayfield?
So we have two charges before us.
Yes.
So would you restate the charges for us, please, to make sure I'm clear on this?
If I may, for the board, one comment, please.
Oh, sure. Please speak up.
I will say, when this incident occurred, and as quick as it could, the management did provide us with video rapidly to learn about the initial assault as well as what did occur. And since the mayor's proclamation and making officers assigned to Station Street, Westbound has worked with myself and Officer Cannon, the coordinator of the job, extremely well as one of the bars on there. I will vouch for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Could I get just a second to close with you guys?
Yes.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate Sergeant Buckner saying that, and he was attacked. I would understand if he's got hard feelings against them. Mr. Harden is a responsible business owner. The board has made a great many questions, and a large point related to security that was licensed and on the scene that night. If you could see what happened, security worked extremely effectively. An incident occurred in the flash of an instant. Immediately, a bartender alerted security, parties were separated, and police were there, I think, in a matter of between 90 seconds and a minute and 50 seconds, somewhere in under 2 minutes. EMS arrived shortly thereafter, a large number of officers on scene. Everything that happens after that was terribly unfortunate. We apologize to Officer Buckner and the female officer that were injured. Those were criminal actions from individuals outside of Mr. Harden's control at that point. Mr. Harden is eager to work with officers moving forward. He has a great relationship with them. He understands there is a microscope on Station Street right now. I want the board to recognize that while they may have seen Mr. Harden in here before, I believe it was maybe 2 years ago, he was the manager of the previous bar called Westbound Bar. This is a new establishment. He took partial ownership with his wife and one more partner in October of last year. Since that time, this is their first violation. This is their first time in front of you guys. So please note he is not a repeat offender for these purposes. This is an isolated incident. These individuals that caused the disturbance have been banned from this bar. And his staff has learned from this. They've made changes. While Mr. Lyles was cut off, he was served a glass of water. Staff has now been instructed that if they cut off an individual, that individual needs to be walked to the front of the establishment and either offered a safe ride home via Uber or another means, or they are just asked to leave the property, and they're given the choice there. So staff has been retrained. They understand the seriousness of this. And final point, a big point was made on the number of drinks that were served. please remember, these drinks were served to multiple parties. It was not just Mr. Lyles and Mr. Lyles that consumed these drinks. Took place in a fairly short period of time, in the course of just under an hour prior to this assault occurring. The effects of intoxication take a while to get going. And on top of that, there's definitely some problems with judging Mr. Lyles' intoxication. This man suffered a severe head injury. He's bleeding out of his head, and then even after he regains consciousness, he's hit in the head again. So making an assessment of his intoxication purely from alcohol is extremely difficult to do in this scenario. That's all I had. We asked for leniency against Westbound. Please recognize that this is their first infraction in front of you gentlemen, you ladies and gentlemen. There's first two infractions, excuse me, and that's all I had. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Mayfield, you still have the floor.
Well, from the testimony we've heard today, it seems to me that the business owners reacted pretty responsibly. The timelines are tight. We didn't hear about it from somebody calling 911 and saying there's been a fight 30 minutes after it happened. So that's it.
Do you have a motion?
No, not yet.
All right. Do we have a motion from the board or any additional questions? If someone just clicked it, it just cleared. I'm sorry. Mr. Smith?
I'll start this off, I guess. I'd like to sustain police report 23079299. That's set for sales to
Incapacitated.
There you go, that word. An incompetent person. And like to make a motion to sustain violation or complaint number 23079308 for operating a disorderly place.
I would like to make the suggestion, just so the record is clear, that we handle one at a time.
Okay. All right.
So-
Mr. Smith, if you will reiterate what you would like to do.
Say it again.
If you'll repeat what you'd like to do
Okay,
with them separated.
Well, what I was saying, we can make them two different orders. Mm-hmm. Okay. But sustain them both.
So you're making a motion to sustain the sales to an incapacitated or incompetent person?
Right.
Correct? Okay.
And also on 582A-1 or 1, operating a disorderly place.
Right, but she's saying to vote on them both separately.
Well, we're just sustaining them right
Sustain them,
now.
okay.
We're not voting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to sustain both. Any other motions or questions or anything from the board?
Call a question.
Yes, sir? Raise your hand. Go ahead. You said you call a question?
Calling for the vote.
Oh,
Call
okay.
the question.
Need a second.
We need a second.
Second.
So we have a motion from Dan Mayfield and a second from Tiffany Bell. Sorry, I couldn't say your name. I don't know why. Ms. Moore?
Yeah.
Then we have a second.
Yeah. Now.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to see what y'all do. Ms. Morris? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
On the first violation, yes.
Okay.
So are we voting separately then?
Yes, we should.
Yes.
Okay. So
Ms.
we're
Bell?
voting on the first one.
The first one, to sustain the incapacitated or incompetent person.
Yes.
Sales to this, yes. Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Okay, chair votes yes, so sustained. Okay, so we have a motion for the second?
Yes.
Operating a disorderly.
For operating a disorderly place, to sustain it, is there a motion?
Well, Ron already made a
Second, I'm
motion.
sorry, is there a second?
Second, I'll second.
Okay, so the motion is by Ron Smith, second by Tiffany Bell. Ms. Morris? Mr. Smith? She said yes. Make sure your green button is pushed and the volume's up. Sometimes they get turned down. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
No.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
No.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. So it's 1, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, so approved. All right. That's it.
The punishment?
Punishment, yeah, who's making the motions for any consequences? Motions for,
Madam Chair, may I make a comment first before we go to the motion?
sure.
I think I want to make sure as we go to the motion, or making a motion, that there must be more licensed security guards in this establishment. With the Dallas law, trained security guards as we move forward. I want to make that clear first.
Okay.
I don't know where that goes with legal.
That's your
how-
motion though, but yeah, but there's no like suspension or anything like that attached to it?
Yes, there's got to be.
Or a reprimand or anything?
I'm recommending, there's got to be, let me pause on that for a second. Let me get my thoughts together on that.
Okay, do that,
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Oh, don't wait. While we're letting Mr. Cole think on that, I'm gonna let Mr. Smith speak. Did you have a question? You hit the button.
No, I was going to hit the button to make a motion.
Oh, okay, well, we'll wait on Mr. Cole then.
All right, there's got to be a 3-day suspension. I think we did that before. I'll do a 3-day suspension, plus there must be a plan with licensed security inside.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table for a 3-day suspension, starting when? You need to attach a date to it.
Effective immediately.
No, yeah.
It's got to be within 2 weeks.
Have to be 2 weeks. So 2 weeks would be August 31st.
All right, effective August 31st. Thank you, legal being
For the first one. So, motion to suspend for 3 days, starting August 31st on the first violation, the sales to incapacitated persons. I just want to make that clear.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
As far as the second part of that about training with,
Additional security guards.
right. I'm not necessarily sure that that is something that's within the purview of the code that we could require of them.
Correct.
You can suggest it, but I don't think we can require it.
Correct, okay. You have a recommendation, right? Okay, so the motion is 3-day suspension starting August 31st with a strong recommendation of adding additional security inside, correct? Is there a second for the motion? Who said the second over here? It was Mr. Washington, so we have a second from Mr. Washington.
I'm sorry to interrupt, ladies and gentlemen, can you take into consideration that is Labor Day weekend that you're talking about?
Or we can ask a question, Mr. Smith?
No, I was going to.
Okay, Ms. Morris, what is your vote on the motion? Yes? Okay. Mr. Smith?
Read the
The motion is for the sales to the incapacitated or incompetent person and is a 3-day suspension starting August 31st.
Correct. Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
Yes.
Ms. Bell? Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, so it is, the suspension is approved for August 31st for 3 days. Is there a motion for the second citation?
I would like to make a motion to, give a, written reprimand for this one.
On the operating a disorderly place?
Yes.
So we have a motion from Tiffany Bell for a letter of reprimand for the operating of a disorderly place. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Morris? Okay. Ms. Morris, your vote? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
No.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, so approved. There's a letter of reprimand for the operating of a disorderly place. All right, thank you, and please, go
Just for
ahead.
clarification,
Yes,
sir. As to the first recommendation for the 3-day suspension, there was also an additional element related to security. Can the board restate that, please?
It's just a recommendation to have more certified security guards inside the location. It's not a requirement, it's a recommendation.
With that, do you mean hiring outside of it, or just having a staff
Like
certified?
additional global.
Additional global, okay. 'Cause I mean, under my, I've trained soldiers, I've trained, I was a police officer. Under my own knowledge and experience, sometimes it's better if you talk to your guys and train them and tell them what to do than having somebody just from the outside and comes in and they don't know your policies, they don't know how to handle stuff. I don't know how they're trained. Now, I am, trying to send a lot of my staff members out to get certified, because I wanted to get certified. I wanted to have this, in the long run, whether they stay with us or not, that's gonna benefit them if they're gonna go security side, but somebody who has done security for over 10 years, whether working for the government or, private security, I know for a fact that many times bringing somebody from the outside, just because you have 10 armed guards, doesn't mean that your place is more safe. Just because you have 20 police officers outside, doesn't mean that it's gonna make it safer. I take it where I go and talk personally with people, and make a personal connection with my staff members, where they have the respect for us as business owners and for the business. And that's why, they take this job seriously, because, of the respect that we have being able to build that,
Okay.
just it's for future reference.
So, Mr. Kiva, what I would suggest is that you also have that conversation with your hired contracted security, because they are contracted for you to keep your place secure, and they should follow your rules. So that shouldn't be if that's an issue, then you need to find another security company. Like that, you should be able to have that same conversation with them.
Yeah, I'm just.
But
like
it's also just to
yeah.
protect you, and to protect your business and your staff, so.
And Madam Chair, may I say something?
Yes, please.
Security, talk about feel safe. I feel more safe at least with 7 guards, on guard, than 1 guard, 165 people in the building.
It's also a lot about, outlooks. Yeah, but I understand. I
Thank you,
appreciate
though.
it.
Thank you for explaining it. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll be right back.
I know that.
Try to be efficient so that folks can get back to work. All right, we have are we ready, Bertha and
Yes.
Lori? Okay, they want to start without you.
Your partner?
Mr. Mayfield,
Yes, I'd like, if we could, just bring back up Spice Trail, the new application they're here now, and I'd like to go ahead and bring that back up.
So we have
Make a motion.
we have a motion to move the Spice Trails new application back up in front of Shady's Corner and the violations. We have a second from Ron Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So approved. Ms. Bertha?
Representing Sonic LLC, doing business as Spice Trail, Sujata Singh is making application to engage in the sale of consumer beer at 850 Market Street, Unit 106. Ms. Singh currently has a carry-out beer permit for this location. The pending application reflects a request to add a consumer beer permit to the location. The location is owned by River City Company and is zoned DCIV 4.
And they currently have met all requirements. They already have a permit. They're just simply requesting to adding a consumer permit on that.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, Sujata. How are you? Good morning. Please introduce yourself and to the board.
So I'm Sujata Singh and
I just swear her in.
Please.
Raise your right hand, please, ma'am. You solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm Sujata Singh and I own Spice Trail. It's an Indian food lunch place and it's open from 11 to 6, Tuesday through Friday. We opened for lunch recently. That's when we have actually people asking if they can have beer on the premises. And here I am asking for that permission, please.
Perfect. Questions from the board? Mr. Smith?
What kind of beer is this craft beers that you sell there, or is this,
We only have 2 brands of beer and they're both from India.
India?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Cole?
Yes, thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
Want to know, how are you going to ID? What's your security policy and how are your staff being trained?
So we've had the person who is up front, they're ABC trained, and then we ask them, like anybody who asks, whether it's to go, even now, that's what we have, and we ask them for their ID, and that's how we just look through the ID.
Okay, is there a system to know if it's real or fake?
No, not in place.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayfield?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the application.
Second. We have a motion to approve Dan Mayfield and a second from Tiffany Bell. Ms. Morris? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, so approved. Thank you for doing business in Chattanooga.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Monica, she will need to surrender the old.
Ms. Singh? Yes, you will need to surrender your carryout permit to Ms. Bertha when you receive your new.
And you will combine the 2.
Thank you.
So that's in the other.
I'm sorry? No, it's by River City Company and Community Pie downstairs. All right. All right, so we're going to move back to the beer violations, and next it is Ms. Bertha.
Representing Shady's Corner, James Healy, location 1402 Cemetery Avenue, District 8, consumer, reference violation of Section 555B, telephone and reports disorders. All permittees shall report all fights and other public disorders occurring on such premises immediately to the Chattanooga Police Department, whether or not participants in any such disorder have left the premises. And Section 582A1, grounds for revocation or suspension. The Beer Board shall have the power to revoke or suspend and shall be charged with the duty of revoking or suspending any permits issued by it under this division upon notice to the permittee and adhering thereon for any violation or any provision of federal or state law regulating the sale, storage, and transportation of alcoholic beverages, or for any violation of any provision of this code or any other ordinance of the city, or when the permittee operates a disorderly place. And 17, the Beer Board may also in its discretion suspend, revoke, or impose a civil penalty for due cause not specified herein. The allowed provision herein stated were violated on 5/24/2023 per CPD number 23054693. Previous violations, none.
So if the board remembers, we were here last time, and I believe some citizens had brought some complaints forward to the board regarding Shady's, which led to me going back and looking into reports to see if there in fact was violations of concern. With that being said, I discovered that a disorder had occurred at Shady's, and it wasn't reported to the police from the establishment. I do have a police report that I could read if y'all would like me to do so.
Please do so.
Please do so and speak loudly, because can't hear.
On 5/24/2023 at 02:10 hours, Officer S. Menendez responded to a simple assault at 1402 Cemetery Avenue. Police spoke
Sergeant
with...
Wood, I'm sorry. Is it possible to turn this mic up? It is? Okay, I'm sorry. It's just hard to hear up here.
Sure. Police spoke with Eli Hernandez, who advised that him and his brother had been drinking at Shady's Bar at this location. Mr. Hernandez advised that he had been involved in a verbal altercation with a short black male wearing a red hat, white shirt, and blue jeans. Mr. Hernandez advised that the black male pushed him and then punched him with a closed fist on the mouth. Mr. Hernandez then advised that the black male suspect left inside an unknown vehicle. Officer Osborne advised that he had seen a gray and black sedan leaving the scene heading east on East 14th Street, but it was unknown if those vehicles were related to this incident. Mr. Hernandez had minor injuries to his lip and no EMS was needed. Police searched the area for the suspect but did not locate anything at this time. Mr. Hernandez and his brother were able to get a lift, no further at this time. And looking at this report, I was able to pull up the CAD report, or computer-aided dispatch report, that dispatch generates when somebody calls in to report a call or report a crime or whatnot. So looking at the caller name, it came from an AT&T Mobility, so that's going to be a cell phone. And then the phone number was not the phone number that comes back to Shady's. So I didn't see any indication that anybody from Shady's Bar had called to report this assault.
Do we know if the assault or disorder actually occurred within Shady's Corners Bar?
So that I don't know. The gentleman here said he was inside Shady's drinking. I don't know specifically if that assault occurred inside the establishment or if it occurred outside.
So did a police officer actually make contact with the alleged victim?
According to this report, yes, he spoke with Mr. Hernandez.
And what did Mr. Hernandez, do we have a report as to what Mr. Hernandez told that officer?
Just the report that I read is what I have here.
Okay.
And so this happened in May?
Correct, May 24th, 2023.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Mayfield?
Officer Wood, so looking at the kind of the breakout on this, the last three sheets that trail. So the call that came in was from a cell phone. Is that AT&T Mobility? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, I want to make sure I'm in the loop here on this. I understand. And it came in at 020652.
Yes, sir, that's what this reflects.
Okay. Then the list following that is the police calls and responses of officers going to the scene. Is that what I'm seeing there dispatched?
Yes, you'll see
Okay.
notes, and then at the bottom you'll see personnel assigned.
All right.
And those are your responding officers.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt? or Schmidt.
Yeah,
Not
sorry.
Smith, sorry.
Smith, Schmidt, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's my southern twang.
Sergeant Wood, what is the address for Shady's Corner?
1402 Cemetery Avenue.
Okay. I think I'm looking, it says 1309 Cemetery. Do we have any idea what that is? Is it, you look at page 2 of the incident report, and that may just be a misprint. Halfway down, under address changes.
Are you referring to the CAD notes?
Yes.
4 or 5.
No, I was thinking 2 of 5. 2 of 5, halfway down, under address changes, date 5/24/2023, time 02/08/31, 1309 Cemetery Avenue, and then right below it, it says 1409. Wondering if that's just a typo.
I can't explain how that address got on there unless, I will say historically what they'll do is cell phones will ping to an approximate location.
Right.
If they can't, if the caller isn't providing a location, or if, say it's a 911 hang up, and I don't know how to explain the science behind it, but they can put you within a certain location or area within a percentage.
Not necessarily pinpoint though.
Correct.
But they give you a general area.
Correct.
Because it's pinging off of 2 or 3 cell phones and.
Correct.
Triangulate, okay.
Mr. Cole.
Yes, Officer Woods, the guy, I'm trying to understand this. The guy that, Mr. Hernandez, is that what it is?
Yes, sir.
Hernandez. Did he say it happened inside or what?
The report does not reflect that, and I have not viewed the body camera footage to see what he actually told police.
So,
I mean, there's room for interpretation there.
right, I get you.
Are you done, Mr. Cole? Or do you have a further question?
I'm just getting my thoughts together. Go
That's
ahead, Madam
okay.
Chair.
That's okay. Mr. Washington?
So the responding officers, we were not able to get any kind of report from them or
So
to inquire?
everybody that responds to a call doesn't do a report. Like, say I'm assigned a particular area.
Right.
That call comes in. I'm gonna do the report. Now, you guys may show up to be my backup, but I'll be the primary officer who does that report.
So was there anyone that did any reporting on it?
Just this one officer that did the report.
But he's not here.
And he's not here?
Correct.
Is there video of this?
I would assume there's body camera, excuse me, I would assume there's body camera footage.
Okay. Mr. Washington, did you have any additional questions?
Question, also, when this incident took place here, okay, we don't know because no one's here to tell if it was inside or outside, we're just going by hearsay, right?
Correct.
So, as far as the Dallas law with the security, were security present at that time? To see if it was outside or inside, because they would have been.
Right, I have no idea if they were on scene or not.
At the Dallas issue, okay.
Okay. Mr. Cole?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Officer Woods, help me, what constitutes disorderly place?
So disorderly place, the best way I could explain it is, I try to mirror what's in Tennessee Code annotated, disorderly conduct. Anything, say if I come there as a police officer and I give you a lawful order and you refuse that lawful order, then I could arrest you for disorderly conduct. If I give you an order to disperse, you choose not to disperse, disorderly conduct. Or I come in your business as a patron and I am creating such an environment that would interrupt your staff, your patrons, anything of that nature, disorderly conduct / disorderly business.
And so, the citation is disorderly.
Yes, sir.
But we really don't know if it was disorderly, because we don't have all.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Any additional questions or comments from the board? Oh,
On here I see the time frame, but it doesn't say AM or PM. I'm not sure what they're,
Are you referring to the report? So 002 is gonna be using military time. So 02 would be around 2 AM.
2 AM. Okay.
In other words, if it was in the afternoon, it would have been 1400.
Okay.
right. Any further discussion, motions, or questions from Sergeant Wood? Okay, do you want to speak to are y'all ready to question?
This is just on the 2305469, or are we doing both?
One at a
I
time.
don't know if Shady Corners wants to say anything, or.
Right, we need to let them speak, but that's why I was asking.
Regarding the one?
Yes.
Okay.
One second. All right, any questions for Shady's Corners representatives? Okay, go ahead and please step up and introduce yourself.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson. My name is Charles Gilbreth. I represent Shady's Corner and James Healy. As you know, it's very important to remember that today we're here only on the 2 citations and nothing more. You know, obviously in the short 4 months that Shady's has been open, there's been a lot of press about the bar, and the vast majority of it, frankly, is exaggerated and inflated. But here, what we're here to talk about is whether there's evidence to support the first citation for disorderly conduct, whether a fight happened in the premises. And as you just heard, there is no evidence of it. We don't know where the call came from. All we have is a man who called the police who said at some point earlier in the night, I had had a drink at Shady's Corner. That is not enough for any kind of finding to hold Shady's Corner, or to hold them liable for not calling the police for any kind of supposed altercation. As to the second one, which I know we will address in a minute with the noise complaints, you know, first and foremost, I'm of the opinion this is not the proper forum for it. You know, when you read the city ordinances talking about, you know, if you're getting a noise violation, it goes to city court first. You know, city court, after reviewing the ordinance, finds that the facts support it, it can then refer it down to the regulatory body.
Why don't we just stick to one at a time, since we're just focusing on the second violation, number 2, with the 2 violations in it. We'll talk about that one.
Sure, that's fine. I'll hold that off.
Just for the record, and I think it makes it easier for the board to think about it. So,
No, that's perfectly fine. So then just to sum up before I allow you to ask whatever questions of Mr. Healy you have on the subject, the evidence presented by the officers here to hold them allegedly liable that we're supposed to respond to does not even on its own prove that anything happened that we should have been responding to. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson, board members. My name is James Healy. I'm the owner of Shady's Corner.
Mr. Healy?
Yes, sir.
My name is David Schmidt. I'm with the city attorney's office, as you can tell, I think. How would you define a disorder?
Well, I suppose there's different types, but in this case, we're talking about a disorder between at least 2 people.
No, well, I'm just talking broadly speaking. How would you define a disorder that would require you to call?
If there is any violent incident, that is a disorder to us. And you'll see through the police records, and I'm sure Officer Wood can give you these police records, we have called the police numerous times for real disorders that happen within the boundaries of Shady's Corner and directly outside of 1402 Cemetery Avenue. You'll see that we've done it probably 10 times. I don't have the police records on me, but I'm sure Mr. Wood can attest to that. We do it every time. We take this very, very seriously. In this instance, and by the way, please appreciate this is, best of my recollection, 3 months now to the day. That's how I describe a disorder. If those things happen, we call the police. And we, for us as in this industry, the police are our friends. They're our best friends because we are not the ones drinking. The public are going to be drinking, and they are there to protect us, and we utilize them. I own 2 bars now. One I've had 0 citations for in 5 years. And any time that we have a disorder, we call the police. That is our policy.
How do you call the police? What's your method of calling?
We have to do it on a landline, which I'm fully aware of per the beer ordinance. I've caught myself a couple of times, even 911 on a cell phone, no, I have to do it from a landline, which is a different conversation for a different day, but I always make sure it's on a landline.
And do you have security? You were here while we were in the previous.
Yes, sir. So our security are present today. They're fully licensed. Currently, we have security Thursday through Sunday. I believe May 24th was a Wednesday, so we did not have security on that day. The reason we have security on those days and not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Shady's Corner is a chill neighborhood pub. That is what it is. And we don't require security because we don't have that many patrons on those days. On the busier days when we realize and appreciate there might be more of a chance for a disorder to occur, we have security to make sure those things are prevented. And if they cannot be prevented, to make sure they're taken care of properly.
Just as a general matter, what are your hours of operation during the week?
11 a.m. to 3 a.m., 7 days a week.
11 a.m.?
Yes, sir. We open for lunch. We have sandwiches and a deli. 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. every day.
And I'm sorry, and you're.
Shady's Corner, and I apologize if I just made
No,
it clear. Shady's Corner is open from 11 to 3 a.m. because it caters to all walks of life, in particular those in the service industry who, after they get off of work from working at, whether it's Chili's or any other place at 11 or midnight, they have no place to go and need a place to come get a bite to eat and to, slow down and decompress before they go back home.
I have just a question about security. When do you have security and how many security officers do you have or security guards?
So from Thursday to Sunday, we have security 6 p.m. to close, 3, and we have 2 officers.
And what's your capacity?
It's inside and outside is split, so it's 100 inside and just over 100 outside, total of 206.
Mr., are you done?
Yeah, I'm finished. Thank you, ma'am.
No problem. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, on this date that this report, citation was written on 5/24, was you aware of this incident?
No. And I've spoken to our management about it, who, by the way, who are supremely experienced about this situation. We think we might know what this scenario might be, but again, it's 3 months ago, and we're not entirely sure, telling the truth. And as I said, and I want to stress this, any altercation, any disorderly behavior, we have reported to the police several times. Every time there is inside Shady's or outside Shady's, that happens.
If somebody on your staff was to have seen that, would they notice it, talk to you, or how would they get that information?
Yeah, 100%. We are massive on communication at all my businesses. It would go through the manager on duty who would let me know. We send roundup texts at every single night of what has happened in that business. If we cut someone off, if someone came in and we just banned them that night, every single night we'll get a roundup text from the MOD, and I will attack that in the morning, and we will talk about that in the next manager meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Washington?
So with the Dallas law in effect, and you say you have a capacity of 200, so basically 100 inside, 100 outside. So any Friday or Saturday night, you should have how many security guards in there according to the Dallas law? Just curious if you know that.
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay, so it's 4 per the amount of people that you would have in there, so.
I would like to remind the board that we're here for the one citation about an alleged disorderly conduct that happened back in May.
Yeah, I don't think right now they're just in terms of education, I think is what this is going on. Is that correct?
That was, but okay.
Any additional questions or comments from the board? Mr. Cole?
I move to make a motion, if you may.
Sure.
I move that this just dismissed based on the facts that we heard. We don't know about the operating disorder of the place. We don't know what happened. I move the dismissal. Can I do that?
To not sustain.
Not sustain.
Not sustain is the word.
Help me, legal.
So your motion is to not to sustain the
yes.
telephone and reports of disorder and the operating of a disorderly place on 23-054693.
That is correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Cole and a second from Mr. Mayfield. Ms. Morris?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
No.
Mr. Washington?
No.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's passed to dismiss, or to not sustain.
So it's not sustained on the telephone and reports of disorders and operating a disorderly place?
Correct.
In connection to the first?
The 23-054693.
All right.
All right. Next.
So again, going back into this, looking into reports, one of the.
1 second, Sergeant
I
Wood.
think, Ms. Lawrence, does she need to read this third?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Representing Shady's Corner LLC, James Healy, located at 1402 Cemetery Avenue, Consumer District 8. Reference violation of Section 582A1, grounds for revocation or suspension. The Bureau Board shall have the power to revoke or suspend and shall be charged with the duty of revoking or suspending any permits issued by it under this division upon notice to the permittee and a hearing thereon for any violation of any provision of federal or state law regulating the sale, storage, and transportation of alcoholic beverages, or for any violation of any provision of this code or any other ordinance of the city. 1, operates a disorderly place, and 17, the Bureau Board may also in its discretion suspend, revoke, or impose a civil penalty for due cause not specified herein. The allowed provision herein stated was violated on 8/4/2023 per CPD number 23084377. Previous violations, none.
So, Sergeant Wood, let me just ask you some questions
Sure.
on this. I think in the previous violation, you mentioned that some information came to your attention to look at Shady's Corner.
Correct.
Can you tell us what that was that brought your attention to this
Sure.
situation with Shady's Corner?
So at the previous Bureau Board hearing, we had, I believe, the imam from the Islamic Center there and another citizen within the area wanted to call or come up to complain about some concerns regarding Shady's. And I was asked by the board to look into that, and I did so.
Okay. And we've dealt with the first part of this. The second one, what did you do specifically to do this?
This is going to take me a minute to explain, but I'll do my best. So looking at the reports, again, just the reports, I went back from the time Shady's opened to the date that I looked at it, which was the 4th of August. And during that time, from April 7 to 31 July, there was 10 calls for noise complaints. Now, with that being said, looking at the noise complaints, it appears to be from one person. I haven't seen any other noise complaints come in. To my knowledge, there was no written report specifying the decibel levels of the music. Nothing to substantiate that it was outside the parameters of what's in the code. As a matter of fact, he was cited Friday the 4th for this. That following Sunday, the TABC requested that I go out with them on some bar checks. Shady's was one of the ones that they wanted to check. I got there, I went to the closest.
Whomever that is, can you please mute that? Thank you.
I went to the closest residence to Shady's, which is, and I can't recall the address, but it's kind of directly behind their bar. And I stood there for approximately 10 minutes or so.
What time was this? What time of day or night?
This was on a Sunday evening, 9 p.m., give or take. And while there was cars parked up and down the road, I mean, there's very little parking in that area. I didn't see any driveways blocked. I didn't see anything that would particularly cause a traffic hazard per se. Yes, you have cars driving through and people walking, needs to be aware of that. But I want to go back to the music and the noise from the bar. You could hear people talking, although you couldn't discern what they were saying. And you could hear a low rumble from the music, but nothing in my experience, and again, I didn't have a decibel meter, but nothing nowhere near what you would hear on any other given night downtown anywhere.
Okay. And this is Sunday at 9 o'clock. Have you gone out any other time of the week on a Friday or Saturday night?
I've driven by there several other times, and, while the parking, can be argued that it's a concern, I haven't noticed anything that would, be over the limits of the specified ordinance.
Have you gone into the bar at all?
I did, that night. I walked.
Both of those, or all three of those nights, or both of those nights?
There's been a few nights where I didn't. I wanted to drive by and listen and just see if I could, kind of distance myself and see how far I could hear. But that particular night, that Sunday, I did. I went inside the bar. They probably had, I don't know, estimated 50-plus people in there. But again, it wasn't unreasonably loud or noisy.
I'd like to go over this report just for the record as to when the calls were made. And you said you pulled this report from April, what date?
From April 7 to 31 July.
Okay. So when was the first noise complaint? Again, I want to get it in the record. If you could just state the date and the time.
I see one here, looks like the first one, April 27th at 1:29 a.m.
Okay. And it says on that same line, I believe it's the first line, at least on my sheet, it says a priority 3. I think it's the third.
Correct.
What does that mean?
I'm not sure exactly how they categorize calls. I believe 1 is being the highest priority call.
Okay.
And 3, I think, would be a lower priority call compared to that, going down, or going up, rather.
All right. If you continue down, can you read the second one on the noise complaint?
I see another one here, looks like May 29 at 11:02 p.m.
Okay. And the next one after that?
June 23rd at 8:47 p.m.
Okay. And the fourth one?
June 25th at 11:19 a.m.
And the one below that?
July 3rd at 6:09 a.m.
And the next one?
July 11th at 3:56 a.m.
And if you turn the page over, I think there are a few more. If you could just put that in the record, please.
Correct. July 20 at 5:55 a.m. July 30 at 12:12 p.m. July 30 at 4:08 p.m. and July 31st at 6:10 a.m.
Okay. Thank you. I would actually like to mark this as exhibit 1. If I could have that back. Well, hold on a second, I may be able to.
Well, give him the original.
If you don't mind. Thank you. And how was this report generated?
So this particular report comes from dispatch. Again, the computer-aided dispatch program. If I type in an address, I can put in parameters such as date and time, etc. And it'll generate calls specific to that location or time frame or whatever parameters I put in.
So was it just 911 calls or was it non-emergency calls or both?
Both 911 and non-emergency calls.
Okay. And can you tell on this report whether it was 911 or non-emergency or?
No, sir. I would actually have to click on each one and open it up to get the details of each specific instance.
Okay. And as far as you know, it appears that each of these are priority 3.
It appears that way, yes, sir.
All right, and I'm assuming, because there's something on here about a shooting or a person shot, which
Yes, sir.
is number 1.
Yes, sir.
So I'm assuming a number 3 is a lower priority.
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right. board have any?
Yes, Mr. Cole?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Officer Woods, you mentioned that when you pull this report, it seemed like the calls are coming from one person.
Correct.
That's through your recollection. We can't see that. Can we see
That's,
that?
again, I would have to pull up each unique, incident, and it'll tell me the caller name, et cetera.
And you did that, and the record states that these 10 calls came from one person.
I believe there was one from a cell phone number, but the remainder seemed at least identify themselves as the same person.
At 3:30 in the morning, at different times.
Yes, sir.
At the various times.
Yeah.
And just so you're aware, we do have the person here who will testify, Mr. Rudolph, who's making the calls.
Okay.
So as soon as we're done with Sergeant Wood, then we'll get him on.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So Sergeant Wood, I have a question myself in regarding to, so when you were saying about the locations and we're looking at this report, it's still triangulated, is that right? I mean, like we're not to assume that everything that's listed here with this address happened at Shady's, correct?
So this one is specific to 1402 Cemetery Avenue. This is what dispatch generates.
Okay.
So if, you know, like if we do Station Street, for example, sometimes those addresses, 34, 23, whatever, they can get mixed up. So it's imperative that dispatch has that address because it may look like you're getting more calls at one location versus the other otherwise. So it's, dispatch tries to get an exact address. Worst case scenario, if you're in the middle of the road, they give you a block range and that's what you use.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, can I do a follow-up to you?
Sure, go ahead.
This report is regarding 1402 Cemetery Avenue.
Correct.
All the things that we see listed.
Correct. However, let me clarify something on that. If you look at the shooting on here, there was no shooting at Shady's Lounge,
That's what we'll get to.
okay? The person was shot on East 14th Street. He came to Shady's Lounge, who called help. They did everything they were supposed to do. So if you just look at this at face value, you may come to some resolutions that, or some thoughts that maybe aren't accurate until you get down into the details of them. Again, as I said earlier, dispatch tries to pinpoint an address. He was shot somewhere on East 14th Street. We don't know the address, or I don't know the address.
Yeah.
He came to Shady's for help. 1402 Cemetery Avenue it
Yeah.
is.
Okay,
So that's kind of where you're at with that.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are you done, Mr. Cole?
I am.
All right, Mr. Schmidt?
Yeah, I just wanted to, with the address situation. So when somebody calls 911 who generates the addresses are dependent upon the person stating where they are?
Correct.
So that could be,
Dispatch will try to tell them where they're at. Hey, I'm in front of Sam's on Lee Highway. I don't know the address.
Right.
Dispatch may try to get the address for Sam's, and if they can't, then they'll try to, triangulate.
Right, and this is why it's important for a landline to be used.
Correct.
Correct? Okay.
Correct.
So, all right, that's all I wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Any additional questions or statements from the board for Sergeant Wood? All right.
If we're done with Sergeant Wood, I'd like to call.
I can just have one question real quick.
Certainly.
Just
Sure.
point of clarification. I believe you said this earlier, but you have no evidence regarding any of the decibel levels for any of the
That is
complaints.
correct. That is correct.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear the question. What was it?
What
I asked Sergeant Wood if he had any evidence relating to the decibel levels for any of the 10 violations. And he answered no.
All right, I would call Gary Rudolph. Rudolph?
Morning. Morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Because you're wearing a mask, you're gonna have to probably speak up.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, plus you're being recorded.
Okay.
So, could you just state your name for the record?
Yes, I'm Gary Rudolph.
And sir, where do you live?
I'm at 904 East 14th Street, directly behind Shady's.
When you say direct, what do you mean by directly behind? Is it opposite of Cemetery Drive, where the front end of Shady's is?
No, I'm on the backside where the, outside venue and parking lot is.
Okay. And what is your estimated distance from the back end of Shady's?
The parking lot is probably about 10 feet from my window,
Okay.
my bedroom window.
And the residence that you live in, is it describe that for us.
A single-family home. We've been there for more than 60 years.
60?
60.
Okay. And prior to Shady's starting in April, did you have any problems with the neighborhood in terms of noise or anything like that?
Not those challenges, no. It's been a nightmare. It's been torture. And I'd hate to hear Shady's being painted as a Sunday school. It's not Sunday school. It has been not only a nuisance, but it's been torture for my family. My family is wanting to retreat. I have a 20-year-old daughter that's an engineering student. She's been home trying to study. She can't study. She's going back to school now, but she doesn't want to come back home. And I've lived in a lot of places in this city, and I've never been afraid. I'm afraid at this point.
Well, let's first talk about your experience or experiences. Just tell us a regular evening, or well, you made 10 calls, is that correct? Are you the one who called the Chattanooga Police Department over noise complaints?
I've probably made more than 10 calls. Self-admittedly, James Healy has just told you he's made 10 calls.
Right, I'm talking about noise complaints specifically.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's been more than 10.
Okay.
I have to call at all times. They'll play music 24 hours a day. There will be nights where the music never goes off.
I'm sorry for the board, they're not open.
So when you see,
that cannot be correct.
so when he's talking to me. So when you see those 6 a.m. calls, that's me. When you see those 3:30 a.m. calls, that's me. When you see those calls on Sunday, when they have a flea market and bring the music outside, blaring it before, church is out, 10 o'clock in the morning, and parking across my parking lot, that's me making those calls. And to believe that they're not making noise or to have that picture painted for you, I can only tell you about my experience and my family's experience.
That's all
and
we
it's
need.
been torture.
Has the noise been so loud that you've been unable to sleep?
I'm sleep deprived. I'm disabled, and now I'm being sleep deprived.
What do you if you don't mind answering, what's your disability?
Yes. So
or what caused your disability?
So I'm on dialysis at this point. That's something that I've tried not to disclose.
I'm sorry,
but that's where I am. I have acute renal failure.
Okay. And you need your sleep with that?
Absolutely, because when I get home,
You're done.
I'm struggling.
Yes, sir.
I'm struggling, and I have to deal with what they do all night. And it's torture.
And what kind of music do they play? Do you know? I mean, I'm not a music aficionado, so I couldn't tell you the difference between rock and roll and bluegrass. But can you tell, do you know what kind of music do they play, or?
So here's the thing, the music that's played has bass tones that rattle my windows. It rattles the windows, and it goes on all night. And even if I turn the television up to try to drown it out, I can't defeat it. And they'll tell you that they've turned it down in the last couple of weeks and that they're on notice. When we leave here, they'll turn it back up. That's how they do it. In the middle of the night, when they think the officer isn't going to come around, they'll turn it up. That's how they do it. and they've been disrespectful to me and my family. They refer to me as our favorite neighbor. When I go and report that there's somebody blocking my driveway, they'll make a PA address, and they use a PA system, and they refer to their customers as MF, and all of the kids from the Islamic Center have to hear that. My daughter has to hear that. You know, they've been quite disrespectful to me and my family. And they're not Sunday school.
Are there other neighbors around your residence? Do you have other neighbors, people who live, have you talked to them?
I do, and they're suffering.
Okay.
They're suffering. Some of them are afraid to say anything about it or to deal with.
I'm gonna
They've made call, as the gentleman is talking to me.
Mr. Gilbreth,
Please don't interrupt.
Yes,
I would like to remind you that the rules of evidence don't apply in this setting.
I'm aware, but.
So you'll have a chance to respond to what Mr. Rudolph.
Yes, ma'am, I will. I would just like to remind the board, though, that the evidence that you all need to consider is something that if an adverse ruling comes down and we go to chancery court, it has to be admissible evidence. And so I ask that to guide y'all's interpretation of what happens.
I understand that, but you'll get a chance to respond. Thank you.
At any point that you want video recordings or images, I have them all.
Okay.
Those are called receipts in my neighborhood.
Okay.
You did have documented video?
Absolutely.
I think that's all I have for this witness. If the board has any questions, feel free.
Open to the board. Mr. Cole?
Yes, Mr. Gary, you mentioned that you were afraid.
Yes.
Explain to the board, what does that mean? Because I hear the noise.
Yes.
But why are you afraid?
So, not only am I dealing with the parking in my driveway in the middle of the night, I get up and have to get broken bottles out from underneath my car tires, garbage turned over, they throw trash in my yard, they urinate on the hedges while my wife and daughter are sitting on the porch. They've thrown a beer can through my rear window. You know, I get all of the smart talk, all of the comments, you know, and so, you know, like I said, I've lived in a lot of places in this city, and I've never had to deal with anything like this. And we've been there 60 years. We're not going to retreat. My wife and daughter may feel that they are going to retreat, but I know how to fight, and I'm going to fight.
So, Mr. Gary, Madam Chair, may I do a follow-up to that, please? Just a follow-up to that. You're here. Is it just your house? Is it I hear you say the other neighbors, and I hear the glass, I hear the urinating in the yards.
Yes.
Is it just your yard?
Yes.
Is it everyone?
So my neighbors, to defend their space, their parking space, everybody on the street has placed their green garbage can out to just have a place to park in front of their house when they get home. His patrons knocked the garbage cans over. They destroyed my neighbor's garbage can right down the street, and she's been complaining about, you know, what they did to her garbage can. But if you drive down that street, you'll see all the garbage cans sitting out front because people are defending the parking space in front of their house.
So they're using the garbage can to block the parking?
Yes. And I talked to James Healy, you know, about this, and what he told me is he does not control what happens before the patrons get into his establishment. Well, somebody has to, and I will, and I have been. So it's not Sunday school over there.
Additional questions and comments from Mr. Rudolph from the board? You have something?
Yeah.
You're already.
Well, not to Mr. Woods. I just want to, with Officer Woods, is there a way, you mentioned the decimal, that you can bring to this board? Because you said when you drove and you went, it was nothing to be, in my words, to be concerned about. Can you do the Desmo?
Absolutely.
And then bring that back, maybe 2 or 3 assessments, and bring that back to be clear?
Absolutely.
Mr. Rudolph said it's rattling his window.
Right.
That means it's gotta be tremendously loud.
Sure.
But when you drove around several times, and not saying that Mr. Rudolph is lying, I'm just trying to see for the board that we can see what that is like.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm be more than happy to do that.
Thank you. Is that okay, Madam Chair?
I mean, I don't see why not. Is that okay for him? I mean, you tell me. Y'all legal?
Well, I mean, technically, what's on the table are these 10 instances for
Right.
this citation.
Right.
And anything outside of that
It'd be additional.
would be additional information that I'm not necessarily sure is essentially relevant to these 10 instances. Is my only concern.
What I would suggest is that the officers that responded tell you that they had to ask them to turn the music down. That's your test, that they found it to be high decibel, enough to require them to turn it down. Now, they've been telling the officers, the responding officers, that they're exempt from the noise ordinance. It's what they're telling, and the dispatch even said that. So a test of going out tomorrow, when they're on notice, to see whether the music is loud or not, it's not gonna be loud because they're on notice. So that's not a good measure of what's happened in the past. I'm telling you about my experience from the past. They violated the ordinance and they've been a nuisance and they're torturing me. So we can't measure that tomorrow. I'm telling you about what happened yesterday.
Mr. Mayfield?
Question for legal, I guess, or for the city organization. There's separate, who enforces the noise ordinance? The CPD?
I believe
Is that correct?
So there's supposed to be a board for the downtown amplified music district.
But this is not in the downtown
That is
amplified
correct.
music district.
I looked on Google Maps and literally word for word looked at each area. And I explained that to Mr. Healy, that he was not part of that downtown amplified music district. I've also provided Mr. Healy with the decibel limits of those that are outside of that limit. So,
But there are rules concerning outside the downtown.
there are, and those would normally be ticketed to city court.
Okay.
And city court has the jurisdiction over that.
But CPD would write the
Absolutely.
violation
It
to
could be a
city
patrol
court.
officer, it could be myself, it could be
Okay.
any police officer.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Guys, Healy has an outdoor venue of 100 seats. That is a carnival. Right underneath my bedroom window. There's 7 parking spaces there, one of which is occupied by a food truck in the handicap space. That has to be a violation somewhere in somebody's court. And so by virtue of them being able to seat 200 people with 7 parking spaces, nuisance was created right there. That on itself, the nature of it. Check out his website and he'll tell you what he is, what he does. And so I'm just telling you that my experience is it's a problem. It's incompatible. We've been there 60 years. They moved there yesterday. And it won't go away. It won't go away on its own. He's elected to be irresponsible because he said he can't control what goes on outside. That's irresponsibility. So I have to be responsible. I now have another full-time job regulating what his patrons do on the outside because he's chosen not to. And they're trying to torture me, but they're kids. They're young people. They're college students, knuckleheads like I was when I was their age. And I don't place the burden on them. I place it on him. I place it on him.
All right. Any additional questions or comments from Mr. Rudolph before Mr. Healy speak? All right, thank you, Mr. Rudolph. We do
Thank you
hear
all.
you and appreciate your appearance.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Before I pass it back to Mr. Healy, I feel like we need to set a couple of things straight, and before we redirect the board.
Excuse me, will you speak a little louder? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I feel like we need to redirect a couple of things. We are only here on the one citation that was given out on August 4th that reached back and found 10 other supposed violations, noise violations that should be in front of city court to be determined before it is sent down to this board for any kind of further punishment. Violations that fall under City Code 2569, which sets forth decibel requirements and boundaries. And on none of these 10 is there any listing of what the decibel range was.
May I say something?
If
The board is here on a disorderly business. And I believe that the board can use whatever evidence they want to make a determination as to whether it's disorderly. What you're talking about regarding the decibel levels is another issue altogether, and you're right, it should be taken down to city court.
Respectfully, I disagree, because the citation that notes that they are disorderly is because of noise violations. And noise violations is governed by the noise ordinance, which sets forth those decibel levels to find out whether or not you actually are violating the ordinance.
Again, if that was down at city court, here, I think this board has a different level of evidence and a different perspective as to what constitutes a disorderly place.
And that is exactly my point. That first we should be in city court to determine whether the ordinance was even violated. Because then, here's the thing. What if city court determines that the noise ordinance was violated by 1 decibel? 1 decibel over, and then remands down here for you all to determine whether that constitutes a disorderly place. That's the point, is that we still have to get to the noise violation first. And since we're talking about disorderly place, anybody who has lived in this town for more than 20 years remembers what Central and Main used to look like. Main Street is expanding, growing, and becoming a great place for all walks of life to live. We, at Shady's Corner, they go above and beyond everything they're supposed to do. They use ID scanners. They check decibel levels. They have security. We have petitions, nearly 2,000 signatures of people that actually live in the community that love Shady's Corner, that come there all the time and are happy because they can actually walk freely on the streets now. They've got a place to go be communal with their neighbors, to share beer, to watch a sporting event, to actually hang out. This isn't the double deuce from Roadhouse like it keeps being painted as. It looks very similar to Feed on the inside, except it happens to be 21 and up. That's the only difference. What is happening here is one neighbor does not like that a properly zoned bar has moved in next door to it. And they've repeatedly called and not only did they have these citations that weren't picked up before, not until he came and talked to this board on the 3rd, and Sergeant Wood went back and said, okay, there were some calls, let's look into them. And in all those calls, there's no decibel level. There is no hint that it was actually a noise violation. And even with all that, we will say there was one time where the sound system malfunctioned and kicked on around 5 a.m. But even then, it didn't kick on and turn into a rock star stadium. It just went back on where it was at its normal level around 11 p.m. But setting that aside, a lot of the complaints about trash, I believe in his August 3rd testimony, he brought up that, there's delivery trucks that are making noise, the trash companies. Well, first off, the trash is controlled by Shady's Corner. All the people that do deliveries and drop-offs come during regular business hours. So that doesn't make sense either. And as far as people harassing his home, I'm sorry that's happening, but there's no evidence that's people from Shady's Corner. There's no evidence that somebody left Shady's Corner, somehow got out past security, past the locked doors with beers in hand to throw through his window.
Can I ask you a question?
If you'll just allow me to finish, please.
Sure.
To bring it back home, we're here for the noise citation. And there is no evidence that we have violated the noise ordinance.
Can I ask you a question now?
Yes.
How many other bars are in the area?
Well, so far you have odd story and the area is growing. No, and I know you said that tongue in cheek, but the city zoned it to allow it to be there, sir.
I understand that, but I'm just asking you, how many other bars are present in that area?
I've got an answer for you, sir. The hot dog place across the road has just been zoned UGC. And I know the developer on that, there will be a...
So it's not open yet?
There will be a bar, no, but we're talking...
Okay, so...
Change has to begin somewhere, sir. It's starting and moving.
But my point is, you're the only business there that is having patrons drink up till 3, is what the testimony is. Who else would be causing those problems, is my sole point.
So oftentimes, sir, because we understand the beer ordinance and understand the TABC rules, oftentimes, sir, we will not let people in at the door if they're over intoxicated because we follow the law. We don't know if, you don't know if those people have been inside Shaders or not, but we...
But my point is, all those things that Mr. Rudolph was complaining about can only come from you guys, because there's no other business.
Sir, that is not true. That is speculation.
I just asked you if there's other bars there.
There doesn't have to be. There are homeless in the area, or there could be people that live next door that have bad friends that show up and go out and wreak havoc and pee in a bush. Okay. It's not saying... So there are townhomes. There are other people that live down there in this manufacturing / semi-residential area. It's gross speculation for you to assume that it has to be Shady's Corner that's responsible for any of Mr. Rudolph's complaints.
May I ask you a question? Have you driven past Shady's Corner? Have you driven past, hold on, let me finish.
I haven't, but I had a witness here who said he didn't have any problems prior to Shady's Corner coming in.
Well, sir,
now he has problems, and you're the only business there.
Let me finish my question.
I think there's a reasonable assumption
Let me finish my
that
question.
the homeless and other people were there prior to Shady's Corner coming in. Ergo, the problem seems to flow from Shady's Corner.
Ergo, nothing to complain about before a business existed there. You're drawing conclusions without evidence. That's not proper, sir.
Yeah, it's not.
It's,
So if you've driven past 14th Street and Fagan Street, by the way, they're openly dealing drugs all times of the day on Fagan Street there. There's been 2 shootings, as we spoke about not long ago. In the space of 2 months, 2 young men have been shot. That's not a coincidence. That is not Shady's Corner. So, and here's the thing. Gary Rudolph does not like James Healy. You've heard the way he speaks about me, and the things that he said that I have said are purely untrue. It's purely conjecture. It's not true. He does not like us. Their sole aim, and I know that Mr. Rudolph, because myself and Mr. Gilbreth have been through the legal process to sustain that we are legally holding a beer license because we had to go to Chancery Court, as you should know. So we went through that process. At this point, Mr. Rudolph and the Islamic Center, I know, are colluding legally, and their one singular goal is to get us shut down. Not to get a drug dealer shut down, not to get a homeless person shut down, but to get Shady's Corner shut down. The way he speaks about it, you can tell he does not like me personally. This has become a personal thing for Mr. Rudolph. I just ask that you listen to the facts instead of the conjecture with which he speaks and these claims that are false. And can I just address a couple of the claims that he made in front of you and spoke about them as they were factual? Because we've been dragged in the press now for 2 weeks because of what they're able to speak about here in this board, and I wasn't even here to defend myself. It's causing undue stress on myself and my staff. We have 50 staff at Shady's Corner. I have another 15 unknown caller. I have 0 citations, remember. And I'm going to invest in the city even further. I'm going to have 80 staff. We're all very serious. This is not a game to us. Food and beverage business is not a game to us, sir. We play this and we understand we're responsible for our patrons and our staff. And by the way, look at them all here today. I care about our staff. They care about me. There's an atmosphere within Shady's and with all my establishments that are not being represented properly here.
I'm sure Mr. Rudolph would wish you would care about him.
Please hang on one second, Mr. Schmidt.
I have a question.
I'm sorry,
I have a question, if you don't mind. Now, you said you own 2 bars, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what's the other bar that you own?
Unknown caller.
And
on Cherry Street.
On Cherry Street?
Yes.
And how long has that been open?
Almost 5 years on December 27th.
And you are listed as an owner of that business?
I'm sole owner of both businesses, yes.
Okay. Have you had any similar issues out of that business?
We close at 2 a.m. every night and we have 0 citations in almost 5 years.
Okay. All right.
And no noise complaints either because we're responsible. But if I may just address some of the claims that Mr. Rudolph made. Regarding our parking, we have 8 parking spots on our property. I also have a lease signed with Bow Investment for a parking lot on the other side of Main Street with 20 parking spaces that we use for employee parking. I'm sure Mr. Rudolph doesn't know about that. I'm also in conversations with the lot across at the road on Cemetery Street with a man named Trace Walker. We've had conversations, but I cannot sign that lease while the Islamic Center guys are parking there, and I don't want to enter into that argument. But that is in the works. So we have more parking than what is being claimed. Trash. Our staff do a thorough sweep every single night and every single morning. We also have a professional janitor service called JanPro that come and clean inside and outside every single day, 7 days a week. Music. Mr. Rudolph is correct in one thing. Their property is 10 feet from the hedge and our property line. From the nearest entrance, which by the way we close at 10 p.m. every single night so we can control the flow of capacity, is 52 feet away. Now, since I had the citation from Sergeant Wood, I've taken it upon myself to buy a decibel meter, and we have been measuring our decibel meters at 6 points around the property every single night at our busiest times from 10 till 11, which is our busiest time of the night, every single night. And in most bars, that's the case. We are not over the decibel limit because I've also sought out from Mr. Sergeant Wood the law required to our bar. I know there's two different ones, but the one that's applicable to us. So again, I don't know why Mr. Rudolph is saying that I am saying it doesn't apply to us. We know there's some laws that apply to us and we want to fall within them. We are reading between 55 to 60 decibels outside of our front door. By the time you make it to the 52 feet to Mr. Rudolph's property, I'm pretty sure we'll be underneath the decibel limit set within that law. And
It's mathematically impossible that's over the decibel limit.
And we do not want to have this relationship. If you were here, I know there's a couple of new board members. On April 6th, I stood up in front of you. I was only allowed 3 minutes to speak that day, which is unfortunate, but I said that it didn't have to be this way with the Islamic Center, and it didn't have to be this way with Mr. Rudolph. Unfortunately, now they've colluded, and there's only one goal for those guys, is to shut us down. But we are here legally, and we are operating legally, and we are operating responsibly. We are doing everything within our power that we can possibly do, including, as Mr. Gilbreth says, we have ID scanners at all my businesses, $1,500 plus invested, security invested, decibel invested, trash services, we've invested in that. I'm not sure what else we can do to make Mr. Rudolph happy. We are within our rights to play music, and it is not loud, it is not shaking windows, and it is not that bassy. We do not play that kind of music. Sorry to go on.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Healy or Mr. Gilbreth?
I'm done.
Okay, let's see who's first. Christy or Ms. Morris, I'm sorry.
So you said your hours of operations are 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So on 720, and you also stated that you keep records of your decibel meters.
Yes.
So on 720, when the noise complaint came in at 5:55 a.m., do you have a...
Let me speak to this one, because I'd like to take responsibility for a couple of instances where I know we've been over the decibel limit, and this has been unfortunate and regrettable, and I am sorry to Mr. Rudolph that these things happened. Not that one, but on the 3rd of July, we got a police call. I think it was Officer Avila again. Our music had been playing at 6 a.m. I regret that so much. What had happened, and we know this, our music system had been shut off when we closed at 3 and had rebooted itself and started playing. What it does, it's on an autoplay, and it played at 6. That was regrettable. It should have never happened, and we've resolved that problem. That shouldn't have happened. I'll take responsibility for that. The other one I'll take responsibility for is the 052409. With any new business, obviously there's growing pains and lessons learned. We had an officer come that night and say, hey guys, the music's too loud. And we've turned it down, and we've kept it to that level ever since. Why have we kept it that level ever since? Since April 6th, we've had a target on our back, and we've been singled out. And I've made clear to my management, and they know, and all our staff know, which is why they're here, that we have to be perfect in everything we do. So as soon as we got that call from that police officer that night, hey guys, you need to turn it down at this time to this, that is what we've done every single night since that day. So I'll take responsibility for that early morning soundtrack, which shouldn't have happened, and that one early days where we were over the limit, and we've since rectified that issue.
Is that the same for 731 at 6:10 a.m.?
I'm not sure what that is. Couldn't tell you what that one is. Might be the trucks that Mr. Rudolph is complaining about, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Can I make one point?
Oh, you'd have to come back up to the podium, sir.
We weren't allowed to interject when...
Yeah, I mean, after they're done. I mean, you can come up and, I think, if you have another point. But Dan, did you say you have a question for Mr. Healy? And
Do y'all have a dumpster?
Yes, sir, we do.
When do they pick it up?
It depends on the trash service. I couldn't give you an actual
If it's like
time.
the one that's at the Galen Medical Building behind my house, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning.
It normally comes earlier in the morning. It's the same service that, do you know the East Line Apartments? They have one, and they pick it up at the same time. So it's the same dumpster service for the apartments that were there previously before we opened.
Yeah, that's kind of the nature of that business.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you would have a dumpster.
Yeah.
Any additional questions for Mr. Healy or Mr. Gilbreth from the board or city attorneys? No?
If I can make one comment before we
Sure,
allow
go
Mr.
for
Rip to come back up. You know, he has had his say, we have not responded, we've hopefully drawn this board back to talking about just the noise ordinances. I would ask that this board, whatever Mr. Rudolph is about to say, that we keep it limited to the citation that we're talking about here, and let's not open this back up to where we have to then come back and respond to it again. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions.
No further questions. Thank you. All right. Yeah, Mr. Rudolph, if you have anything else to say, and then we will move from there.
Well, I just want to say, in any case where there's he said, she said, you can have the back and forth, and you can make whatever claims, but I'd like for the recorder to make sure that it's reflected in the record that James Healy said that I was involved in collusion. So I'd like for that to be part of this record, that he said I'm colluding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. Any motions or comments from the board?
I'll make a comment.
Mr. Mayfield, or I'm sorry, Mr. Smith comes up first.
Thank you. This is tough. What I would urge is whatever we do is that at least there is going to be some record on his file that he was here today and we've heard all this, and that to keep him on notice, that so that when it happens again, there's something there's a prior, okay, or something there to look at that says he's here and we've heard all this.
Mr. Rudolph? Or
Mr.
James Healy?
Shady's Corner.
Shady's Corner, okay.
Okay, on their file. It don't have to be a penalty or a suspension necessarily, but it needs to be at least a letter of reprimand or something to that effect. And I don't know how we get there real easy, but that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Okay. Mr. Mayfield?
The reason we're here today is because this building was spot zoned,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't have been. That's my personal opinion.
Exactly.
As a citizen of the city of Chattanooga. And now we see that this was the impetus to review all zoning, and I believe this case is the one that sparked. Maybe we need to revisit this zoning situation. Any business has to be a good neighbor. And in this case, you're in a position to where you've invested a lot of money, a lot of employees, and I just encourage the business to be as aware as possible that you are plopped down in a residential area. It's business, it's residential, I know that, and things are changing, there's no doubt about that. But on the other hand, as any business, you need to try to be as good a neighbor as you possibly can, and be considerate of the neighborhood and the conditions. Just put yourself in that spot. How would you like it if you lived there? Okay.
So I couldn't see. I didn't realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's and so I just encourage you to really bend over backwards and really try to educate your employees as they're coming in. Say, we're in a neighborhood here. When you leave here, don't be talking loud and acting up in the street. Go back to your car quietly and leave. And I know you can't police them, but And I'm hearing that y'all are concerned, and I recognize this, but this is a most unusual scenario for us. Most unusual. That's all I got to say.
I would say it's definitely growing pains for our city, but I think that does not take away the respect for your neighbors. As you create an establishment to have a community and a nurturing community of your neighbors, that includes the one behind. And though I have been in the same position, of having large volume and sound, and especially with the sound ordinance, that I speak over generally most days, because this is low for our city, that does not remove you from, if you're going to take the profits from the business, you also got to take the good and bad and responsibility of the business, right? So unfortunately, that means you also have to talk to your customers and say, you can't harass my neighbors. You can't throw, and I know you don't know who that is, but having those conversations and giving that same kind of conscientious effort, right? I mean, because whether we may want to live next door to Shady's at our age, someone else older may not, and they were first. But it is a difficult position because I do think it's growing pains for our community. Not that a bar or a restaurant shouldn't necessarily be there because we're all expanding, but it is growing pains that we as a city need to work on. Ultimately, though, we still need a decision by this board on which direction you want to go and use a motion or how you want to handle it. So.
This is what we get paid the big bucks for.
Right.
Remember, we're all volunteers up here.
And we all have to go to work too.
We do get parking if you park in the city garage.
If I can make a comment,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your, yes, Mr. Cole, please.
Is it possible, legal, that we regroup to the back for a second, just a dialogue? We can't do that, we have to do it publicly?
No,
We can't do
sunshine
that?
laws all have to be
right.
transparent, correct?
And we're through hearing from everybody.
Right, is there anyone, okay.
Okay, we're done, okay.
I mean,
Go ahead.
yes. You can talk, I mean, that's the whole purpose of this, is to put forth your
Right.
ideas.
Correct. Gotcha.
And to banter back and forth and come to something. So, I mean, that's part of the discussion period for the board to do.
So, thank you. So we are sure, Madam Chair, according to this citation 2308437, that they were operating in a disorderly place within the times from April 7th to July 31st. We even heard James Healy did say some of those were correct. Correct.
I would say that we admitted to twice the noise was too high. We did not admit to operating a disorderly place.
Noise. We're talking about
two singular noise complaints.
Noise.
That's correct, sir. And that goes back to the point that I was making with Mr. Schmidt earlier about how whether a noise violation even occurred should have gone to city court first, and then this board determines whether that is disorderly conduct.
Yeah. But we're here. I get you. I totally understand.
Yes, sir.
We're here. So according to 2308437, there was some disorderly taking place for the sake.
Still would not agree to that. I would agree that the noise was regrettably too loud on those two occasions. We would not call it disorderly.
Yeah. And for that reason, that's what I think we should address, because you admitted to that. I move because there was a disorderly in place that, again, we sustain this and do a 3-day suspension just based on this 2308437. That's my motion.
He gotta get a date.
Yeah, you also have to give a date.
Yeah, August 31st, what's the date previously?
Yes.
You have to make a motion to whether or not you sustain it first.
Make a motion to
And then you
sustain.
vote on it.
Okay,
And then if it is sustained, if there's a punishment aspect to it, then.
I put it all together, I'm sorry.
You have to state that.
Okay, I make a motion to sustain 2308437.
With, you make a motion to sustain.
Yes,
All
I
right,
thought
is
we
there a
had to do that
second?
first.
Second from Tiffany Bell. Ms. Morris. Right now, you're just voting on whether to sustain the operating a disorderly place. Yes, okay. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
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 Mr. Call?
Yes.
Chair votes no. But it is sustained.
Right.
No. So next,
Yes, along with that, make a motion to give a 3-day suspension to Shady's Corner based on this violation 2308437
starting,
in 2 weeks.
so August 30.
August 30.
August 31st is 2 weeks?
August 31st.
Okay. So the motion is to suspend, a 3-day suspension starting August 31st by J.W. Cole. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tiffany. Ms. Morris? Your vote? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yes? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Mayfield?
No.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Chair votes no.
I would like to point out to this board that you just gave the same suspension to a bar that got into a fight and punched a cop to a noise violation.
Which I took responsibility for as well.
Thank you.
And that is their right.
May I just address the board before we break just one more time? Is that okay with you guys? Am I allowed to?
Sure.
I just appreciate you guys hearing us out today. I will say, these citations came about from 2 weeks ago. People in the neighborhood, and specifically 2 people in the neighborhood, came and made allegations against us with no proof, and I wasn't even here to defend myself. We are legally operating, and to your point, Mr. Mayfield, about the zoning, because you guys denied me on April 6th, we've had to go for a pretty, it's been a legal rigmarole, can I say. We've been to Chancery Court, and we are legally doing business there, and that is the zoning. I was not even involved in the zoning change before, it was happened before I signed the lease. Right. And this is why we keep appearing here in front of you guys. I've always spoken to Sergeant Wood. I hope today that we can start to build a relationship, but every time someone moans about what Shady's Corner is doing, am I going to get dragged in front of this board and given the same suspension for a vicious attack inside another bar? I would hope not. We're doing everything we can, and we are really trying. And I just hope that, if I wanted to complain about my competitors every week, do they get dragged in front of this board? I wouldn't think so. So I hope that we can kind of draw a line under it. Please understand that me and my staff and my management, who are superb and have amazing experience in this industry, are doing everything we possibly can. Mr. Rudolph does not like me. That is not going to change. The Islamic Center do not like me. That is not going to change. But in 4 months, Officer Wood was able to dig out these 2 things for a bar that's brand new and operating 4 months and has done very high volume. I think we're doing pretty well, and I hope that's recognized by this board, and I hope we can formulate a relationship, especially with Sergeant Wood and you guys, as we go forward. So thank you very much for hearing us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haley.
Thank you.
All right. So, where is the agenda? All right, next we have discussion. Is there anything the board needs to discuss? No?
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes, sir.
Let me just say hello to Miss Christy Moores. This is her second time. I didn't get a chance to speak to you last time. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Morris, for attending and serving on the board. Oh, okay, 1 second. Yeah, next we have public comments. Anyone wishing to address the board may speak for 3 minutes. Please come up to this podium. Do we have any public, oh, hi.
Hi.
Thank you. Give me 1 second and let me clear this and get your, if everyone could be quiet so the public comments can be heard. 1 second. All right, you may start.
I just want to...
Please introduce yourself.
My name's Jake Moore. I'm obviously here in support of Shady's Corner, and as a bigger picture, I'm here in support of growing small business in the city of Chattanooga, especially one that has opened legally, and especially coming from someone who I deeply respect, James Healy, who has operated, as he mentioned, as well as his law team here, nearly 5 years without any incident. And when people come up who legally open a business and take accountability for their actions, and this board gives the same suspension to an incident where an officer was assaulted It's extremely disappointing. I moved here, I went to college here, I stayed here because of the growth that I believed that this city was gonna have. And today, for the first time, I regret that decision deeply. And it strongly is making me reconsider the investment that I want to make in this community. Because why should a business that opens legally, takes accountability for their actions, why are they punished in the same way that an officer was assaulted? What sense does that make? And I see the faces of some of you up here. It's smug. It seems vindictive. So why should me or anybody else in this community look at the results that came out here today and give back to that? Why? As a city that grows so much and that I am so proud of the growth that it's having in every single regard, why should somebody continue to invest in that when there's clear punishments that come from operating legally, taking accountability? Isn't that what everything is all about? I'm just disappointed in the city of Chattanooga. I'm disappointed in all of you. I'm disappointed in the result today. And like I said, for the first time, I regret my decision to stay here and try to operate a business.
Thank you. Hello, come on up, please
Just a
introduce
comment,
yourself.
right?
Yeah, it's public
I
comments and you're
didn't- I
given
didn't-
3 minutes.
Thank you. I don't need that long. I didn't plan on saying anything, but I am going to. My name is John McCune, MCCUNE, and I'm an owner of a bar. Got to know James over the last, 8 or 10 years. I've been in this business 33 years. Worked at some of the finest dining places in the United States. 5-star, 5-diamond. My wife and I are so proud to be in this city. We've been here 10 years. We have a very, I think, successful bar, J-Max, that's up the road here. You guys approved us for 2 beer licenses. We have a catering license, which I just might use for August 31st and that weekend if you need it, James. But I just want to say I have not met very many people with the integrity and professionalism that James has. And I think it needs to be noted by everyone here. The second thing is I don't think, we're dealing with a lot of lives here, not just James. He's in a strong position. But the bartenders and the servers that have families and bills and a livelihood, they need to be taken into account in these blanket sweeps of swift, justice that I think was not carried out here. I also don't think it's funny. I've heard a lot of laughter on this board here while you're making these swift judgments, and I don't think this is not a funny time. And I just want to say, I think I'm speaking for a lot of the people here, it's rare you get bar owners that have the integrity and love that he has for his customers and his employees, and I think you made a mistake today. So I wish him well, and I hope that we improve the systems that we have in America, which are great. Thank you.
Hello, please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Drew Brandenburg, that's Brandenburg. I do the security for Shady's Corner, and what I saw in the last bar was a joke. Not sure how the 3-day suspension for a bar that literally has trash security. It was a joke. The guy was putting his foot in his mouth, he has no security. James goes out of his way, Mr. Healy goes out of his way to put security, we're licensed to the max. Armed security guards, we do our job, we keep Shady's amazing. We have people that come up to us, man, we feel great that you guys are here. The gentleman that spoke, as I look around, we see the homeless doing drugs in front of his house. I've seen it myself, in uniform, wearing a gun, a badge, the whole deal. There's no complaints about the drug use and the drug dealers, but a good, controlled bar that does everything right within the legal establishment gets in trouble. I'm baffled because just the years I've had of experience in different things I've done, I just don't understand how a bar with no security that allows a man to get knocked unconscious. Mr. Healy's bars had 0 fights, 0 altercations inside his bar. 0. no drugs, no fights, no rapes, no crazy shit. But yet here we are getting a 3-day suspension when he does everything right over noise complaints that are just, it's baffling to get a 3-day violation when somebody's getting knocked unconscious compared to a noise complaint. Now, the noise may have, killed somebody. I don't know. Hell, their ears may have blown up and exploded. I don't know. But I work there. And this is bullshit. This is not fair to the community when a bar owner does what's right, but comes in here and 3 or 4, I know there was some up here that didn't believe in that bullshit, that didn't believe that this noise ordinance should have deserved a 3-day suspension. That's uncalled for. There has to be a better standard. You can't charge somebody for rape and then charge somebody for littering the same fucking crime. That's not okay.
Watch your language, please, sir.
We have to be better. We have to be better. We got to do better. You got to, pop the head out of the anus and do better. Because it's uncalled for. It's ridiculous. As long as I've done security, best bar in town for security. There's a couple other bars that hire the security firm that are great security. But yet, these bars that don't do it, we're getting the same punishment. I mean, you got to think about that. You're putting a man out of business for no reason.
Okay.
Hello, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Manuel Caballero. I've now lived in Chattanooga since.
Can you spell your name? I'm sorry.
My name is Manuel Caballero. It's Manuel. Caballero is Caballero. So I moved to this town in October of 2021, and I've been with my company now since since April of 2022. I distribute liquor and wine. One thing that was brought up by you guys today was talking about being a good neighbor to the community and being a good neighbor to the other gentleman over there as well as to Shady's. I think one thing that you guys kind of forgot about being a good neighbor is taking away everyone's opportunity on a busy weekend that have lives, children, rent, families. It's hard out there when you work for tips. I did it for a long, long time. I think some of you spoke today about how you do it as well. Knowing that you go above and beyond every single day when you go to work and you're trying your best and you come in front of your community and you're told that you're not doing your best, you're not being a good neighbor, and you're going to be suspended and penalized by shutting down for 3 days makes absolutely no sense because it works two-way streets. I mean, if this whole city is trying to grow and evolve and expand, we're talking about the neighbors of a lot of people that are here today, a business that is bringing a lot of good here. I mean, we have a college in town. We want to keep this college growing. We want to keep this whole community growing, just like we saw what's happened going down Main Street in these past few years. I mean, this is just the reality of what's going to happen in Chattanooga. These bars are going to be popping up. And here's an example of somebody that's running something to the T of what they should be doing. That is, every time that there's been an occasion or situation, they've come before you guys. This has taken a lot of time out of everyone's day to talk about this. So don't forget about the other 50 people that are here today, the 2,000 signatures. Don't forget about all those neighbors as well when you make the decision for one person because of a system that went off at 6 a.m., which he took full ownership for. But shutting down for 3 days, that doesn't just affect these people here. It affects me personally. It affects my company. It's so much more than just black and white, just shutting down for 3 days and then that's it, let's go to lunch. So, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name is Denise Whalen. It's Whalen. I too work for Athens Distributing. We're a wine and spirit wholesale house. I have called on Mr. Healy for 5 years plus, the courting before his business opened, and he's been nothing but a stand-up business owner. I have worked for Athens for over 20 years. I have had numerous bars come before your court for various reasons. Weekly you all get them. And I have never in over 20 years heard of a verdict like this for something that is not even proven. There was no proof at all that that's what happened. You based your decision off of one man's comment, and you affected the lives of 50 people in doing so. And I just want to put it out there that I think your decision is wrong. I don't think that you all thought about it at all. I think that there are people up here giggling and laughing, and I am ashamed, absolutely ashamed of the decision that you all made today. It's embarrassing for the city. It's absolutely embarrassing. I don't know if there's even such a thing that you all reconsider your vote, but if there is, I would encourage you strongly to do so. Thank you for your time.
Hello, Board. My name is Sydney Gautier, Gautier. I've been a member of this community since birth. I've seen the development, but I've also been told to respect my community. You guys have told to respect us. I'm looking up here today. I see people on their cell phones. I see people laughing, and I can encourage you, sorry, I'm a little nervous right here, a lot of coffee.
Take your time.
To reconsider, to think about this. You guys just gave the same punishment to someone for another crime. And I don't know if you guys have meetings, I don't know about this sunshine rule, but like to reconsider different punishments for each crime or allegation. Due to this, disrespect as well from laughing at the board or being on your cell phone or other like that. I understand you guys have busy lives, but we do too. And all of these people have lives to live as well, and they have busy jobs and they have things to take care of. So I appreciate you guys listening, but I would also ask if you consider thinking through different punishments for different allegations and also showing respect to your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I would just like to say.
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Kelsey Hassel, Hassell. I've been working with James for about 3 years. I also had a fuck ton of coffee. Some of us had to close last night to be here. Yeah, I'm pretty fucking pretty disappointed right off the board. Mr. Schmidt, it's been a decade the entire time. And you take one person who has complained about noise, one person. Every time you make a 911 call, you don't have to give your name. You can be anonymous. Not a single one of these neighbors, nobody's calling. One guy's calling. And Mr. Smith's been sitting on his phone. You guys have been snickering and laughing. It's bullshit, honestly. And I'm blown away that this is considered a city attorney while the rest of the volunteers have been more professional than him. It's bullshit. The whole thing's dumb. And you guys made a really fucked up decision tonight.
Hi, I'm Jenna Foster. I work at Unknown Caller, so I've known James professionally for about a year now, and I've been since day one of his establishment because it was a safe bar. Even with Shady's, we get off around 1 o'clock, and this is my profession, this is my career. I used to work at Blue Cross. I have a bachelor's degree. I'm not just going to be a 21-year-old that's in college trying to afford, another drink. That all of us are professionals in this establishment. Even the way how you hold the glassware is very important to James. Those are things that we go and we learn day one. It's not where we just go, okay, so someone wants, a drink, let's go and make it, and that's it. Like, it's a relationship with that person. So I understand that, our customers may not be, behaving outside, but I don't believe that's the case. Because the thing is, we have a reputation within Chattanooga, and we have a reputation within ourselves that nothing goes by us, especially you, James, that's not going to be correct. The thing is, if there's things that need to be fixed, we fix them internally, and they don't even have to go externally at that point. And that's why you've never had an issue with unknown caller. And so I understand that there is a sound ordinances that this gentleman is accusing of us as. But the thing is, if an unknown caller has been good for 5 years, why is there an issue because we changed locations? It's still going to be a very upstanding community and an establishment, and so I don't understand why our punishment is the exact same as a bar fight, because that would have never happened.
Thank you.
My name's Jacob Nichols. I also work at Unknown Caller.
I'm sorry, James.
Jacob Nichols, Nichols.
Jacob, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I think you guys have probably all understood how most of the people here feel by now. But I just want to make it crystal clear what this punishment actually is. And it's not just any weekend, it's Labor Day weekend. So you're telling every single person that works at Shady's Corner that in 2 weeks, they are not going to make $1,000 that weekend. They're going to make $0 now. And they have to still feed their families, they still have to pay rent, they still have to get food on the table in some way. And you've just taken $1,000 from 50 people. So just understand that when you guys make your rulings.
I just want to say one more thing, sorry. Kelsey Hassel, again. One thing I would like to add, James is a stand-up person, not only in the way that he runs his business, but the way he treats our staff, from Unknown all the way over to Shady's. This man single-handedly pays for every single one of us to have health insurance. His own money, he's paying for us to have health insurance. He gives us 401k, he treats us like an actual fucking business, an actual business, and not just a run-of-the-mill dive bar, no offense, westbound. And yeah, I mean, this man pays for our health insurance. He pays for everything. And you've just robbed us all of money, of the respect for him that he deserves. And yeah, I just wanted to say one more time, it was bullshit.
Thank you.
My name is Daniel Starkey, Starkey. First of all, for Drew to get up here and get upset is a lot. Homeboy's a combat veteran and deserves the most respect out of anyone in this room. Second of all, I'm a manager at Shady's. I'm opening another bar and restaurant with James Healy. I've been in this industry in Chattanooga for 10 years. There's nobody in this city that cares about hospitality more than James Healy. I guarantee that. As you can tell what they've been saying, it's part of it. Let me get my thoughts here. When you talk about loving your neighbor and being careful about your neighbors and caring about them, I can guarantee you from day one that has been the goal of Shady's. His motto is every single meeting, every single day is Shady's is a place for everybody. And if any of you have been in there, I guarantee you can tell that. Every single detail James knows about and James decided because it's helpful to bring community together. So this decision, it just makes me think that you guys have not been in there, which is totally fine. But it's definitely, as everyone has said, is for everyone, through and through. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Is that all of the public comments? Just to make sure everyone has their opportunity. All right, thank you, everyone, for.
One thing I just like to put in the record, I'm not going to read it in. Waste of time. We have multiple letters of endorsement that we would like to submit, along with the. Hang on, these are given to me.
Yeah, give them to.
Okay.
We have 6 letters of recommendation from real neighbors that are not Mr. Rudolph, and we have 2,000 signatures on our petition who actually support us. Mr. Schmidt, can you look when we speak to you, please? We have 2,000 signatures as well who do support us. I do think you've been given a very large voice to a very small amount of people and not considering the full community of actual what Chattanooga is represented. I know that's unfortunate, but that's 2,000 signatures right there and 6 letters from real neighbors who live and come to Shady. So. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more public comments, do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion from Mr. Cole, second from Mr. Washington. We are adjourned.